You have it. We are kicking off a brand new week, and we are kicking it off live from the Omni Hotel in Dallas, Texas. It is the 2024 SEC Media Days, and of course, today's coverage brought to you by Game Day Men's Health. Is your quality of life diminishing? It could be low T. Low T can lead to a loss of sex drive, reduced energy, decreased motivation, mood swings, and much more. Give Game Day Men's Health a call today. Game Day Men's Health in Huntsville. They are today's sponsors of SEC Media Days. Give them a call right now, 256-850-1570, to find out if it's right for you for a free visit, 256-850-1570. Now, coming up today, it is a jammed-packed day. At 9:05, Greg Sankey will give the State of the SEC address. Then at 10, Brian Kelly from LSU. 11:35, Shane Beamer. 150, Lane Kiffin. 3:20, Clark Lee from Vanderbilt. We will run down the rest of the schedule and everything else that is going on here at SEC Media Days because we are full, and we are full right out of the gates.
Yes, we are. And speaking of one of the most well-connected people in football, former NFL scout, now the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl from Mobile, Alabama. It's an honor to catch up with Jim Nagy, who's been kind enough to join us here on Radio Row here in Dallas, Texas at the Omni Hotel. Jim, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Right off the top, I mean, you're already trying to recruit guys to come to the Senior Bowl, which is one of the best events for preparing you for the NFL draft. I saw some interesting stuff on your X account recently about Jalen Milroe. I am so intrigued to see how much he continues to improve. I thought last year he grew more than any quarterback I've seen under Nick Saban in a year. Now we have a guy that I think is kind of a quarterback whisperer with Kalen DeBoer. How intrigued are you to see how much better he can get?
Yeah, it's I'm excited to see that too. It's gonna be one of the big questions of the college football season. I've been in Dallas the last couple of days. I was kind of bummed out. Jalen actually had a camp in Mobile yesterday, where my daughter goes to high school. That's where he is having his camp. But I did see Jalen a couple weeks ago at the Manning camp.
Yeah.
So I've seen him throw it. But, I mean, my question is, are they going to have enough playmakers to really let him make that next jump? You know, losing Jermaine Burton and Nye Black, the tight end, and
Bond.
In Bond. I mean, they're going to need guys like Jeremy Bernard to step up. They're going to need guys like Kendrick Law to step up. I mean, tight end is a position that with Nye Black gone is a question. But yeah, I mean, he does a lot of good things, but I just worry that losing some of those pieces, he's going to be able to show what he showed because, again, everyone talks about what Michael Penix did last year, and he was great. We had him in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Love the guy.
Yeah.
8th overall pick. But, I mean, they had 3 receivers go in the top 3 rounds too. I mean, he was throwing to some dudes at Washington. So that is, to me, I wish I could answer it. We'll see. But that's going to be one of the biggest questions in the college football season.
I'm sure throughout your journeys you have had conversations with Kalen DeBoer. Your thoughts on the new coach?
Yeah, I didn't really know Kalen until he got to Bama. He was one of those guys. You know, we had Kane Womack down at South Alabama. He's been a really good friend of mine for the last 3 or 4 years being in Mobile. And so when Kalen got the job, I called Kane. I'm like, you know, what kind of guy is he? And that's when I knew that we might be losing Kalen. we might be losing Kane down in Mobile.
Right.
Because he was like, well, Jim, he's one of my best friends. He's a really good guy. But no, Kalen came down and played in our Senior Bowl golf tournament a couple weeks ago. So had some really good time to catch up with him down there. Great guy. I mean, everyone talks about he's won everywhere, right? We all know that. But he's a really good person first and foremost, and he's won everywhere. So like, those are two good places to start. And we've seen what's happening on the recruiting trail. I mean, I don't follow that stuff too closely, honestly, guys. But it seems like they've been making some hay here in the last month or so. So I think he told me the other day they had 53 or 58 official visits in June. So, gosh, June has become a really fun month for these coaches. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Kalen's going to bring to that team. And you talk to the holdover coaches, like he's bringing a lot of new, fresh stuff. I mean, they're still trying to keep some of the Bama way in the building, but Kalen's bringing some of his own stuff.
Yeah, and then Kane so well. We get asked this question a lot. Defensively, how it's going to look, because we've seen Nick Saban for 17 years, different DCs, but a lot of the same concepts. What are your thoughts on Kane defensively at Alabama?
I think the biggest thing talking to Kane is going to be in the secondary. They're going to be their eyes are going to be on the QB all the time. You've probably heard him say that.
Right.
I mean, it's a really aggressive defense. I think they call it their swarm defense, whatever they nicknamed it. But he's, Kane is such a good defensive coach. Even when they were at Indiana and they didn't really have personnel, they were good on defense. So that's the thing he's most excited about, is to be able to coach a bunch of 5-stars for the first time in his career. I mean, he's used to coaching a bunch of 1- and 2-star guys at all the places he's been. So to have some of the guys he has right now, like Keon Sabb is a guy I know he's really excited about. So I would just think eyes on the quarterback, lots of turnovers. And again, not that they didn't turn the ball over a lot with Coach Saban, they did. I mean, you go back over time, whatever that defense was, 2017, whatever year that was. I mean, they were unbelievable with all the defensive touchdowns, but I would just look for a really aggressive attacking style defense.
Now today we get LSU. Brian Kelly will be here. Lane Kiffin will be here. The Rebels have a lot of talent this year, a lot of older talent. LSU has a lot of older talent. Senior Bowl, you guys looking in a lot at LSU and Ole Miss, guys?
Absolutely. No, Ole Miss has more draftable players on our board right now than anyone. And that usually equates to a really good season.
Yeah.
Last year I sat here and when people asked me about, they didn't ask me about Michigan specifically, but when people asked me, who's got the most draftable players, last year was Michigan. This year It's Ole Miss. They hit the portal hard. I would say this offseason, it's Ole Miss. It was Ole Miss, Miami, Louisville.
Yes.
Hit it really hard. So there's, again, they had some losses. Quinshad Junkins going to Ohio State, but man, Ulysses Bentley is the guy that we offered a Senior Bowl invite last year to. And there's people in the NFL that have higher grades on Ulysses Bentley than they do Junkins, even though you wouldn't think that, because Junkins is the higher name in college football.
Right.
Ulysses Bentley's super talented, man. He's dynamic. So I hope he comes back off that injury that kept him from coming out last year. He was ready to come out and play in the Senior Bowl, and then he hurt that foot in the bowl game. So no, they're loaded. Lane Kiffin did a great job this offseason.
Yeah, they did, and I'm really excited. I'm excited to see Juice Wells in that offense with more talent around him than potentially he had at South Carolina.
Yeah, I think Trey Harris is going to be one of the best receivers in this draft. You don't see a lot right now, but Trey's another guy we offered. We offered Trey a Senior Bowl spot last year, and he decided to come back. He's a great player. Juice Wells is kind of a forgotten guy, but going back to South Carolina tape from whatever year that was, 21 or 22, it seems like it's been a while now, but he's a first 3-round guy as well. Pre-scoring, the tight end might have the best hands of any tight end in the draft. So, yeah, they've got a lot of weapons. And I just posted something this morning with Garrett Nussmeier. I rolled through all his stuff last night from the bowl game, and man, they've got their guy behind Jaden Daniels. Nussmeier's an NFL guy. I had seen him throw at practice last August, but I hadn't really seen him play in a game. So last night was really going through the tape, was my first exposure to what he looks like with 21 other guys on the field. And he's a dude. He's an absolute dude.
You mentioned the Manning Passing Academy. A lot of quarterbacks this year. I mean, you looked at that field there. Man, there were some arms.
Yeah, there always are. It's such a great event. And it's not just the throwing stuff, because the day I was there for the night that they do like the the air it out challenge or whatever they call it. And there's only about 5 throws. I had to get back to Mobile for our Hall of Fame and charity golf thing to get set up. So the best nights to go are Thursday and Saturday. Unfortunately, this year I was there on Friday. But, of the guys down there, I mean, Carson Beck was really, really good. Quinn Ewers was good. Like most years, the SEC quarterback showed up down there.
Is Beck the highest rated quarterback in your mind right now going into the season in this conference?
Yeah, it's him and Ewers, him and Quinn Ewers. It's weird for me. I got to get used to. You're my first show of SEC Media Days. I got to get used to including Texas and Oklahoma in this thing.
History.
But yeah, those two guys are the top guys. Carson Beck is another guy that we were going to offer a spot to, and Kirby. Kirby and I had a conversation in December, and he was like, "Jim, please hold off on that invite. We're trying to keep this guy in school." And it was probably a smart decision for Carson. I mean, last year we all know. 6 quarterbacks in the top 12 picks. It would have been a log jam. I don't know where Carson would have shaken out with that group because he didn't go through the whole process. But he's at least starting this fall near the top of that list.
Well, you mentioned the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame. 5 guys, I believe, going in this year. Marty Lyons, D'Amico Ryans. It's a good five-member class.
Yeah, it was good. And there were some Alabama ties. We don't always, that wasn't the goal. But, with D'Amico and Marty and then Roddy White. to have. There's another in-state tie with him being the best player in UAB history. So, and then we had Carson Palmer, former #1 pick and Heisman Trophy winner, and Eric Weddle. So it was a great class. It's just a great event down there in Mobile. And the biggest thing is it raises all the money that we make. We've given $130,000 over the last 2 years, and now this year another $80,000 to our local high school programs. And if you don't know Mobile, I mean, there's a lot of haves and have-nots in that community. There's some schools that really need help. And the cool part of the program is they can use that money on whatever they need, whether it's like jerseys or shoulder pads or blocking sleds or video technology. So no, it's really become a cool staple in the summertime. Like obviously we have our game in early February now, but that gives us like another event to kind of anchor the calendar.
Well, great stuff, Jim, man. We appreciate the time. We know you're busy. We were great to run you down right to kick off the show, kick off our week here in Dallas. But you do an amazing job with the Senior Bowl. We watch so many guys get the opportunities to move on to the NFL, including in our community. We just had our own kind of charity flag football game. A lot of those guys, Darian Stewart, all those guys that Reggie Ragland have all been part of what you guys do, and man, we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. It's good. We're in for a big week, aren't we?
Yes,
we are.
Appreciate you letting me kick it off with you.
In Dallas, of all places. I mean, remember? This thing was in Hoover, and we were just all this, and now we are boom.
I know you've been here before you go since Friday. You talk about the offensive line camp you were able to attend.
Yeah, so there's an offensive line trainer named Duke Manoweather. He's all over social media. He does a great job. It's incredible what he's built, and he does it with Lane Johnson, the great right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, who we put in our Senior Bowl Hall of Fame a couple years ago. Creed Humphrey is another guy that he does it with. Creed was in our game, so it's great. I mean, they had all these Hall of Fame players back, and it's basically a symposium. And I think they had 80 college guys, so I was there to connect and recruit. But there's a bunch of pro guys as well. So it's a really cool event.
Yeah, we're honored here because Billy Neighbors is in the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame, and Wes Neighbors owns our station. And so we're honored to be a part of. We have a little bit of connection there to the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame.
And we just hired his grandson, Jackson Roby, to work as a scouting assistant for the Senior Bowl. So we're excited excited to get Roby to Mobile.
Yeah, his mother's gonna call now. She's gonna be so happy.
Yeah, so we're excited to get Roby to Mobile.
That's awesome. He's been working for Butch Jones at Arkansas State. So
that's awesome. All right, Jim. Well, thank you so much.
All right, guys.
All right. That's good stuff right there. 7:13 on a Monday morning. Let's get our first break in here from the 2024 SEC Media Days live in Big D.
She's going to
back in. And, we're at Rosenblum Realty trying to take care of all your real estate needs, whether home buying or selling. We'd like for you to put our 64 years of experience to work for you. We have 4-generation family ownership and, again, take a personal touch to taking care of your real estate needs. Call us at 256-539-9501 or rosenblumrealty.com.
Mark and Henry McDaniel, attorneys at law, are proud alumni of Madison Academy, and Madison Academy is proud of them. They have served our community through their practice, through volunteerism and service on national, state, and local boards. They explain the complexity of critical court rulings on local media. Their successful practice has been built on integrity. Both are veterans of MA Athletics and proud sponsors of Mustang football. McDaniel and McDaniel, attorneys at law. No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by the lawyer.
97.7 ESPN.
Finding the right people to staff your healthcare organization can be challenging, but Hire Pro Health can make it so much easier. Headquartered in Huntsville with...
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to...
This is the beginning of a new
Madison Academy football.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At Sportsman Mind Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our sports med specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying, roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great
There you go. Welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond, welcome back into the program. We are live from the Omni Hotel in downtown Dallas. It is the 2024 SEC Media Days. That is all underway. Now, coming up today, this is what you have going on. Make sure you listen to 97.7 ESPN The Zone beginning at 9:05. Commissioner Greg Sankey will have his State of the SEC address. And then at 10 a.m., Brian Kelly, LSU head coach, will come your way live. And then at 11:35, you will be able to listen to 97.7 ESPN The Zone, but make sure you have the app downloaded because I believe on Zone 2, we will carry Shane Beamer live for you. And then at 1:50, Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin will be there. And then at 3:20, you'll have a chance to hear Clark Lee, which, by the way, Clark Lee is already in the building. The Vanderbilt head coach is making his rounds already this morning. He just walked in to the room where he will be giving his address later today at 3:20, kind of scoping out the surroundings. In fact, Vanderbilt actually arrived yesterday. We saw them arrive when we pulled in here to the Omni.
Yeah, they were getting out of the shuttle bus, and Clark Lee was pulling up to this Omni Hotel. And Vanderbilt will be the last the team up today from the standpoint in the main media room, where you'll see Clark Lee in the first day. And it's the third year for Coach Lee, and it's been a difficult start, no doubt about it. And they lost some big-time pieces to the transfer portal, Scott. It's going to be a different team at Vanderbilt this year. And so they're kind of starting from scratch, it almost feels like, in year 3 for Clark Lee.
Kind of scrolled through the Vanderbilt media guide, and I wanted to take a look and see, by the way, Jordan Matthews, the former Madison Academy standout, still owns several receiving records the Vanderbilt thing. He still has the record for receptions in a year with 112. He set that back in 2013. His senior receptions were 112. That was set back in 2013. I don't think that one is getting broke. He still has the season record for yards. He actually has that twice. In 2013, he had 1,477 yards. And then in 2012, he had 1,323 yards. He owns the top 2 yardage season marks in Vanderbilt school
Not just
history.
Vanderbilt, SEC history. I mean, the guy is up there in a lot of categories for the 4 years that he put together at Vanderbilt. And now I believe he's a Nashville resident still.
Yeah.
He had a nice NFL career. He's been trying to continue to play, but he had some injuries toward the end of his career. But just one heck of an athlete is Jordan Matthews. Really the first big-time SEC signee out of that run at Madison Academy that, they didn't win a state championship while he was there, but he kind of set the stage with Eric Kohu and all those guys of winning, 3 straight state titles in 12, 13, and 14 for Madison Academy.
Now, he still owns the career reception mark yardage-wise at Vanderbilt, 3,759 yards. It's always fun when you get to look at the media guides, because they put them out every year, obviously. But this is the first time you get to look at them at the new year, and it's always fun to go back and see former North Alabama guys, especially Huntsville, Madison County guys. Kenneth Darby still has his name in the Alabama record book on the rushing yard mark. It's always fun to go back and you look at these names and you see Jordan Matthews' name in the media guide there for receiving yards at Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt will be in the house later today.
Yeah, there's no question, and he still owns most of just about all the career records at Madison Academy. But my guy Jackson Reese broke some of his single season records this year. As you know, we're the home of Madison Academy football in 97.7 The Zone, and you and I were there. You were on the sidelines as they made the 3A state championship game in Tuscaloosa and had an just believable season under Bob Godsey last year.
All right, let's slip in a phone call here real fast. Jeff from the Borough is with us. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Jeff.
Good. No, I disagree with that, Jeff. Jeff's in a happy mood, obviously. A sign of disrespect. I don't know how they come up with the order for this or whatever. It's a rotating schedule.
It is.
There's no sign. I'm sure.
Kentucky's not always last. Matter of fact, I can't remember. This is my year 10 for me, Scott. Now this is year 6,520 for you, whatever it is. Because
I was counting at home. It's either 25 or 26.
Well, yeah, but I know because you've been on the other in the media side or TV side too. But I'm just saying, I've been to 10 of these things. I think Coach Stoops gets a lot of respect. We give him a lot of respect on this show. We will very likely be here, through the last coach and then be gone on Thursday. But we're looking forward to hearing from him. I think they're an intriguing team. I think as always, they're flying under the radar. When you've been somewhere as long as he has and done as good a job as he's done. Look, Jeff nearly lost him to Aggie Land. Let's not misunderstand something. If it hadn't been for a couple of boosters and some people freaking out at the last minute, he's not even
dean of coaches would be coming and representing Texas A&M
John
today.
Summerall would be the football coach at the University of Kentucky, and I guarantee it. But enjoy him in New Orleans, Tulane, because that's where he's at right now. But I think Stoops has done a really nice job, and We'll see if how good they are offensively. They've got some holes to fill, but he always does a nice job of keeping them extremely competitive. They know who they are. They're very physical, and they got Eric Wolford back as their offensive line coach. And, they were, Joe Moore finalist his last year there at Kentucky before he spent a couple at Alabama. So, now they lost Liam Cohen again back to the NFL, so they've made some changes in their staff. But I still think Kentucky has got a chance, especially defensively, to be really good.
All right, let's see if we can get let's get one more phone call in here real fast. Pat from Tuscaloosa is with us. Good morning, Pat.
What up, Pat? 2 5-stars, brother. Well, I don't think he's completely off the table. They're going to continue to recruit him. He's visited several times this summer. He's committed to Ohio State. He's been committed to Ohio State for a while, and I think in many cases, a lot of people, I've heard at one time this summer he was considered 95% to Ohio State, but things can change. He's the top prospect in the state of Alabama. Alabama has a need at DB, and especially at the cornerback position. They certainly would like to keep stacking in that area. So we'll see. But I definitely think they're going to keep recruiting Naheem Alford all season long until he signs in December. And so I will say I think that Alabama is got a little more inroads there than Auburn right now. But it's going to be tough to get him away from Ohio State, but that's not a done deal yet. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, Pat. Last night, that's what I said. We were sitting there at the house, which, by the way, is fantastic.
It's a highfalutin house.
It is a highfalutin house. Enjoyed time in the swimming pool last night. And I enjoyed
watching Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh, man, it was just so relaxing. A little bit of a cool breeze. I know I say cool breeze, like a 90-degree breeze, but it was nice. Enjoyed time just laying by the pool and relaxing a little bit after the drive. We had an In-N-Out burger yesterday.
Yes,
we did get to the In-N-Out burger, so Drew has his first In-N-Out burger experience.
B+ to A-. Really good.
Okay. See if you can come over. And we had that. And anyway, let's get it's 7:28 here on a Monday morning. We are here at SEC Media Days. Let's see if we can get a break in. Yeah, let's get a break in here real fast. When we come back, we will get back to the phone lines, get back to your calls. More from SEC Media Days in Dallas.
I had told Steve.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
97.7 ESPN.
At Argo Hughes Alfreds LLC, our roots began in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where J. Knox Argo practiced law with Richard Shelby. Now with over 100 years combined experience, our attorneys are ready to put their experience to work for you. When you hire us, you will talk directly to our attorneys, not a paralegal. If you need counsel, contact the law offices of Argo Hughes Alfreds LLC. Online at argohughes.com. The representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
When buying or selling real estate, knowledge and experience are key. With over 27 years experience in real estate, Jennifer Rose, Keller Williams Realty Realtor, has extensive knowledge of the Rocket City to take care of all your needs. Keller Williams is the world's largest real estate technology franchise by agent count, with more than 1,100 offices and 200,000 associates, and is #1 in units and sales volume in the U.S. Jennifer Rose, Keller Williams Realty Realtor, would love to earn your business. Give her a call at 256-337-4555.
97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
All right, welcome back. That song is only fitting for us here today. I know the Tennessee Valley is going to be on the hot side as well. But yesterday when we were in the vehicle driving around downtown Dallas, it said 103 in the car. So it is going to be another hot one here today here in Dallas. It is the 2024 SEC Media Days, and, of course, today's coverage of Talking Ball brought to you by Game Day Men's Health. Give Game Day Men's Health a call, 256-850-1570. And Game Day Men's Health can help you out if you have they can get you to healthy energy levels. They can promote muscle growth. They can support your sex drive. Hey, motivation and confidence, facial and body hair growth, maintaining bone mineral density, proper immune function, getting a good night's rest. Game Day Men's Health can help you on a lot of levels. Give them a call today, 256-850-1570. They are today's sponsor of Talking Ball here from SEC Media Days 2024. Let's go out to the phone lines real fast. Rod is with us. Good morning, Rod.
Good morning, Rod. We've already hit one of them.
No, we hit two. Okay, so yesterday afternoon, we hit In-N-Out Burger.
Yep.
And then last night, they put me in charge of ordering pizza. And I thought
he was bluffing on the name.
Yes, I called Lover's Pizza for 5 guys. There were 5 guys in the house,
right.
And I called Lover's Pizza, and it was just right up the road from the house. And let me tell you,
it was good.
It was some pretty darn good pizza that we had from Dallas last night.
So good on the food.
Yeah,
options.
we're 2 for 2 on food.
And we've been to a grocery store.
And then we went to a local grocery store that is here in Dallas, Tom Thumb, and we visited the grocery store, and it was pretty fantastic as well. So far, we're off to a good start on the food side. Yes.
We've already got a couple people talking about the stockyards.
Yes.
Rod.
Yes. The stockyards is exactly where we need to go. I've been there. I'm trying to convince everybody else.
Here we go with this, man.
and Drew just got the beverage that I'm never seen.
Try it, but it scares me.
We've never seen this one before. It's a limited edition. I guess they're unveiling it here. It is a creamy coconut Dr. Pepper.
Oh. And I love coconut, but I've never had it in a Dr. Pepper. But I did watch somebody eat a Diablo sandwich, and he ate it back because he was in a hurry yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Pat called in, and I knew that's what he was going to be wanting to talk about, and they got two huge 5-star commitments. They're number 1 and on 3 right now in recruiting. They're number 2 in 24/7. So the recruiting class continues to grow. They've got 22 commitments, 23 if you count, Pete Notaro, the walk-on kicker from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But they got Ty Haywood from Denton, Texas. We actually went past the Denton exit on the way in here, Ryan High School, Ty Haywood. And Rod, we also saw 2 or 3 high school football castles, I'll call them that instead of stadiums, on our way in. They kind of dwarf what we see in Alabama.
And they are on the poor man's end of the high school football stadiums around here.
We even saw a couple being built.
Yeah,
so.
and they make what we have in Huntsville look
like the miners.
Yeah, basically they're mini Alabama A&M facilities, basically, for high school. I mean, they are on that top end.
Yeah, they are, really are. It's going to be interesting because there's a couple of decisions coming down on the 20th, July 20th. Derek Meadows from Bishop Gorman, 6'5", wide receiver who has Alabama, LSU, Notre Dame at the top. He was going to decide this past Saturday, but decided to give it another week. And then Floyd Bucar, from Miami Central High School, formerly of Mobile Christian, that they were on that Mobile Christian team that dominated and won the 3A state championship over a really, really good Madison Academy team we already talked about earlier on the show. Floyd's going to commit the same day. He's from, Canada as well, so that Canada connection is continuing, but he's going to be making his decision on the 20th as well. So Alabama's heavily involved there. You got Alabama, you got Oklahoma, you got Miami. Those are 3 of his finalists. So he's another one that Alabama's been heavily pursuing. So those are a couple of guys to watch. And then A.K. Deere, the running back from Quitman, Mississippi, 4 to 5-star level kid. He's decommitted from Ole Miss now that Caleb Cunningham has come out. From Akron, Mississippi, the 5-star wide receiver. I would watch for A.K. Deere. If you were watching Aaron Hodges, one of the guys that is in the recruiting department under General Manager Courtney Morgan, he was grilling out this weekend, and he said he was really looking forward to having some deer soon. Yeah, Kalik Lockett. The Kalik Lockett is a guy that is going to commit soon. He's going to commit probably in early August. So, and Alabama's got their Champions Cookout coming up on July 28th. And Kalik's been very active on social media following this Alabama recruiting class. He's from Satchys, Texas. He's got his final 2, really. I think the top 2 anyway, Alabama and Texas. Texas lost out on DeCarrion Moore, who ended up, after decommitting from LSU, committed to Oregon. So he's a guy that they lost out on, so they're probably going to pour a lot into, Kalik Lockett. But Alabama really likes him as well as they do, Derek Meadows. So we'll see. But Alabama's got a lot of irons in the fire, and this recruiting class is going to continue to grow. You talking about Justice Sari? I think he's going to end up at Georgia. I mean, we will see. He's officially visited Alabama. They really like him as a player. But right now, Just talking to the people that would know, I think Georgia would be considered the favorite. They just also flipped, Georgia did, Isaiah Gibson, the edge rusher from USC to Georgia. Well, we'll see. It depends on, what Alabama wants to do. They want to take, I think, 2 backs in the class. Anthony Turbo Rogers is taking a long look at Ohio State. But he's a State of Alabama kid. He went to IMG. Now he's back at Carver Montgomery. If Alabama wants to hold on to Anthony Turbo Rogers, I think they will. It's tough to get an in-state kid away that Alabama wants, but we'll see. But certainly Ohio State's making a run at him. And they also have Naheem Offord, but Alabama's not going away in trying to flip Naheem Offord from the Buckeyes as well. And he's the top prospect in the state of Alabama.
Yep. Oh.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Rod. All right, 7:42 here on a Monday. Let's get a break in from SEC Media Days. We will wrap up hour 1 when we return.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Hi, welcome back.
Vacation.
No, we're not on vacation anymore. We've done a lot of that this summer. It's Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. We're live from SEC Media Days, day one, and it is a Monday morning. And we're sitting around 77 degrees right now. It's 7:47 in the morning. Welcome back. Talking Ball 256-576-4977. That's how you can hear us, or you can call in later in the show. But right now, you can hear him every single day over our airways of 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Yeah, you can, from 10 to noon. We are honored to be an affiliate of the Chuck Oliver Show. It's a rite of passage. We always try to catch up with him when we get some FaceTime at SEC Media Days on day one. And Chuck Oliver is here on Radio Row with us here from the Omni Hotel in Dallas. We were talking food, of course, during the break. Chuck, it's great to see you, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm tremendous. I just I developed a relationship with some huevos rancheros earlier this morning. So,
hey, man,
you hit that vein of conversation.
Yeah. Speaking of veins of conversation, just a great event here. First time ever for us in Dallas, Texas. This is a new time for the SEC. 16 members now, Texas and Oklahoma. The Red River rivalry is now officially in the Southeastern Conference. We've been anticipating this for 5 years. Your thoughts, Chuck?
The conference expansion is tremendous. I mean, you went and got the two linchpins that were going to, collapse the Big 12 and allow the Pac-10 to take over college football. Like, these are the two programs that were going to do that. These are the two programs. Remember, Kansas, when everybody talks about how valuable basketball is, Kansas and Duke and all that, remember, Kansas was about 30 minutes away from not having a conference. And that was all because Texas and OU were leaving. Well, Sankey did what Sankey does. He was sitting next to Bob Bowlesby for about a year and a half at those playoff meetings. The entire time he was texting the guys in Austin and Norman, and he was honestly doing what he's supposed to do for who he works for, which is the Southeastern Conference. So the expansion, it's huge, and you set that ball in motion just like you have. I mean, it was the SEC who read the rule book and said, oh, divisions, championship game? I mean, this is just another thing over the last 30 or 40 years where the SEC has led the way. As far as coming to Dallas, this looks like it's going to be a first-class event. I mean, big facility and well set up. And so I'm sure that for the listeners, everybody who consumes this product this week, it could be as good as you get.
First year without divisions for the SEC, something new for the fans to wrap their head around. I don't know if a lot of fans are ready to see a team be picked to finish 10th or 11th in a league. Used to be you got third or fourth in division. It was like, okay, that sounds better. But now there's going to be some really good football teams that we're going to say they're going to finish 9th, 10th, 11th in the league this year in football.
Yeah, it will be different. I mean, you have to go almost back. What was the famous baseball saying about 100 years ago? Washington Senators, first in war, first in peace, last in the American League. Because you would, as you said, they just lined everybody up. And you finished first and you finished 12th. You know, that's just what it was.
Yes.
And so nobody's ever finished 12th in the SEC.
Somebody's
about to.
Yes.
And it's going to be a different day. But as far as the that's just the pride thing, because we're going to finish 12th to 13th instead of 6th or 7th. The applicable part of this is there is no fast track anymore. There is no express lane to the SEC. I got a buddy of mine's a South Carolina grad, and he asked me every year, when are we going back to the SEC championship game? And so I will give him a scouting report and who's down. And when they went in 2010, I was like, well, this team's down and this team, you know what? So there's an opportunity. He asked me this offseason, when are we going to the SEC title game? I looked at him. I said, you're not. You're not. We can play for 100 million seasons, and South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri is never, ever going to appear in Atlanta again. Because Vanderbilt, there was a season where James, did we realize this? He beat Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee in the same year.
We were talking about Jordan Matthews today.
Yes.
If you could get in that lane for a magical 4 months, there's no magical 4 months anymore.
Right.
So
Chuck Oliver Show, you can hear it daily here on ESPN 97.7 The Zone. I know we're going to this expanded 16-team league, but who do you like as your top four? Because I think the top four are going to the college football playoff preseason for Chuck Oliver. Who's the top four in the SEC?
All right, can I combine this with who are the top four, my top four preseason SEC QBs? Because, I mean, this is as top loaded in a great way. quarterbacks in the conference as I've seen in a long, long, long time. I've talked about how when the ACC, when they broke through and had their year, we're like, we're the number one team conference in America. I was like, yeah, look at the quarterbacks. The SEC this year, I talked about this last week. I was looking at last year's Heisman because had been previewing who I was going to vote for all SEC. Jalen Milroe, like all the players at all the schools for any position on the field, he got voted 6th in the Heisman voting. He may be 15 quarterback in his own conference this year.
Crazy.
I mean, you look, because we're all going to follow him.
No, you're right.
React to Nico.
Right.
And then there's Jackson Dart, who is my, I don't know, Prize Picks. Who's y'all sponsor? DraftKings. So, like the daily fantasy stuff, Jackson Dart every Saturday.
Right.
And then Quinn, and then the first overall draft pick. And so Jalen Milroe's looking around, it's like, what's the guy got to do with a little respect? He might be the 15 quarterback, and I ain't even got to Brady Cook yet. Connor Wegman, Nussmeier. Maybe Gus lays hands on Peyton Thorne, and like it's a miracle, like that can happen.
Bless this Peyton Thorne.
So it's an unbelievable. And by the way, Shane Beamer, he will tell you today, and I think I buy it. They love Lenore Sellers. So up and down this conference, man, it's going to be a fun season.
You mentioned Brady Cook and Missouri. They've been to the SEC championship game twice under Gary Pinkel. I mean, people need to. It's been a while, but they've been there. Texas A&M is not, by the way. What about Missouri this year? Good
schedule.
It's a favorable schedule.
Up for them.
There's a lot of things favoring Missouri, but can they do it in back-to-back years? Can they duplicate the success they had last year?
Their schedule, you're right. It's like one of those, who is it, Dude Perfect? It like throws the impossible. I was like, you added Texas and Oklahoma to this conference, and then the result was I got an easy schedule. I don't know how that's possible, but against the backdrop of relative ease, their schedule, I'm saying, I'll take that one. And you're right. It's Brady Cook and those teams you mentioned in, 13 and 14?
Yes.
Again, in the division era, they could have played Auburn 100 times. They could have played Bama 100 times. They were never, ever going to win those games. Here's the difference. They were doing that with a bunch of 3-stars. They got, wasn't that Coach Cool back then? They coached him up and turned this kid into the SEC Player of the Year and all this. That was fantastic. Eli is about to be doing this with 5-stars. And I don't know what kind of sorcery he's dealing out in Como, but, the once every 3 years when there's a 5-star in the state of Missouri and then Oklahoma or Texas or LSU or somebody gets him, that is not what's happening. Credit to Eli and everybody. And it's not just, here was that big myth about, hey, they're going to get into Florida and Texas and all that with the conference expansion. They're everywhere. Credit Eli and that's a legit program that's getting better and better.
Well, before we let you go, I still like Alabama and Georgia in Atlanta. What about yourself?
It's a good a two-school combination as anybody could pick this year. What happens to Texas? Do they lose to both of them, or do they?
I think Texas will stumble at some point. I just think Kalen DeBoer is going to make a really nice transition to Alabama. I can't wait to see what he does with Jalen Milroe, who improved under Saban, I thought, and Tommy Rees as much as any quarterback. I want to see if he can wave the wand, though, and take it to the next level.
Guys, 100% on that. The conversation, my gosh, he's got a number 10 wash tub with national championships. I get it. Move over from Saban to DeBoer. I'm like, man, DeBoer knows how to run a program.
Yeah.
Right? Saban ran the program. DeBoer does that. Tommy Rees to Kalen DeBoer, holy smokes, no disrespect to Tommy Rees. From Tommy Rees to Kalen DeBoer, go look at DeBoer's track record everywhere he is, bunch of yards, bunch of points.
Yeah.
My quarterback's in the league. Jalen Milroe, this is the end of the rainbow for him.
Yeah.
This is the best thing possible. I can't wait to see him play this year.
Last year, we thought Georgia was way out in front of the pack, and then it was a little bit of distance between the rest of the SEC teams. Is Georgia that far out again this year, or have they come back a little bit to the rest of
the portal and transferring and name, image, likeness, and a Butkus Award finalist thinking he can get more playing time at Kentucky? I don't know, how's that real, but it's real.
Right.
That's part of that step back.
Okay.
Tell you what, though, the great equalizer? Mike Bobo could drop a cinder block on the scales this year if he says, screw it, we're throwing it. I mean, if he just, son, let it rip. If he did that this year, and he really may, because they have, they've got scholarship running backs like everybody, but it's not the same as we're kind of used to. I think Etienne's as talented as anybody, but it's just not the same as we're going to go out there and ground and pound and like beat you up. Mike Bobo could change everything.
My last question. I'm having a hard time deciding how good OU is going to be in their first year here. What about you?
They're still building, and it's on defense. Here's the big misconception. You know, we also, how do they lose? Like whenever a team like Oklahoma, they got all this talent.
Right.
Okay. They did on offense. When Brent Venables got there, I can go find the kid again, but he got a 5-star linebacker, I think it was. It's the first 5-star defensive player they got in like 7 years.
Whew.
I don't like these days of Tommy Harris and all that.
Yeah.
That's on the History Channel. Okay, that's on a VHS tape. That Oklahoma with a bunch of 5-stars running around their defense, that is not the case. He's changing that now, and here's with Venables. Here's his ultimate goal. Venables, and go back and look at that team at Clemson with the 3 first-rounders and Austin Bryant. Brent Venables' goal is to whip you up front so that he can get simple in the secondary and that his guys can just fly around and be killers. All right, that is the goal. Whip you up front so that I got numbers and we can get simple on the back end, and that's the goal.
10 to 12, Chuck Oliver Show letter today. We really appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. And sorry about making you stare into the sun.
No, it's good for my complexion.
All right, that's hour 1 of Talking Ball from SEC Media Days, day 1. We're back with day 2 coming up, or hour 2, I should say, coming up after this.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying roll tide and war eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
So check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So just his, how do you turn just his headset up?
He's cranked up pretty good.
Okay, check 1, 2, 3, 4. See, when you do that, when you turn this one up, the whole thing it like cuts in and out in my ear. Talking Ball live from SEC Media Days here in Dallas. We are at the Omni Hotel, downtown Dallas. And of course, today's coverage of SEC Media Days brought to you by Game Day Men's Health. Game Day Men's Health in Huntsville, they can help you. Do you have chronic fatigue, guys? Loss of motivation, increased body fat, low libido, brain fog, mood swings, muscle loss? Low T generally includes all of those following. Give Game Day Men's Health a call right now. They are our day one sponsor here of SEC Media Days, 256-850-1570. It's Game Day Men's Health. They are today's sponsor of Talking Ball here at SEC Media Days at the Omni Hotel in Dallas. Now, coming up later this week, and I say later this week, on Wednesday, we will get Jeff Lebby from Mississippi State. We will hear the Bulldogs on Wednesday. But then coming up later today at 1:50, Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss will be in the house. So we get the Ole Miss Rebels with all those expectations coming up later today.
But I still think one of the more intriguing teams is Mississippi State because they hired, Zach Arnett last year. It did not work.
Yep.
I mean, he was a one-year head coach, really good defensive mind. Ironically, now he's on the other side of that rivalry at Ole Miss as an analyst. But Jeff Lebby and the offensive guru that he is, that he's been with under Gus Malzahn, that he's done under Brent Venables at OU. He's now the new head football coach of Mississippi State, and we're going to talk Mississippi State with Brian Haydad from Super Talk Mississippi, who's with us on Radio Row, the Omni Hotel here in Atlanta.
Yep.
Or excuse me, I knew I'd say that. Dallas, Texas for the first time.
Yes.
Brian, what's up, man?
What's going on? I like these headphones. I'm going to steal
Do you?
them. They're very comfortable.
They're
They're
soft. They are.
I like that.
There you go.
Nothing
man.
but the finest.
I appreciate that.
For
We don't
everybody.
think Jeff Lebby's going to be soft, though,
Yes.
right?
No, not at all.
Bulldogs won't be soft this year.
No, I don't think that's going to be the problem. Talent might be the problem, but I don't think that effort is going to be for this team.
Right.
This Mississippi State team. You mentioned Ole Miss and the expectations. Mississippi State and their fans have to kind of live in a bubble inside of that, I guess I would say, and that Ole Miss is going to be really good this year. I mean, I think so anyway. And State is probably not.
Right.
It's a rebuilding year for Mississippi State. It's going to be about getting back to a bowl game. If they go 6-6 in Jeff Lebby's first year, that's a very successful season for Mississippi State. And of course, it's more about what you see on the field almost than the results. State wants to win, but you bring in Jeff Lebby, you're trying to bring in a guy who's going to change your culture offensively. Mississippi State, even with Mike Leach, was not an explosive offensive team. That is the goal this year, is to become a team that can put points on the board week in and week out with consistency. I think State fans have got that point where that Ole Miss fans were at a few years ago, where if you're going to lose, it's better for your entertainment dollar to lose 51-50 than to lose 10-7.
Right.
And that's where State is right now.
Boy, they going through – Mike Leach's offense was unique because it was Mike Leach's offense. And then last year you try to – go back to a style that was not, it was trying to put a round peg into a square hole. And now you go to Jeff Lebby, who is wide open. This is, how do they recruit? How do they try to, you talk about rebuilding. This is an ultimate rebuilding project.
If you didn't have the transfer portal, you'd be in a world of hurt at Mississippi State right now. You go back to last year. I'm sure if we could ask Zach Arnett, he would tell you that he made a huge mistake not sticking with the air raid at the time. Will Rogers, love him, but the system quarterback label works for Will Rogers, and we'll see how he does up at Washington this year. So State hit the transfer portal hard. They bring in Blake Shapen from here in the state of Texas over at Baylor to run this offense. They brought in a couple of running backs. They brought in a fleet of wide receivers. They maybe have 4 starting offensive linemen coming out of the portal this year. And a lot of change on the offensive side of the ball for Mississippi State. And if it's going to be a big difference from what they were doing a season ago, where they were one of the worst offenses in college football. The hope is that they can have the kind of turnaround, and it's a comparison I've made on our show and on my podcast a lot, where Kiffin's first year at Ole Miss, he took over for a really bad Ole Miss team. Came in that first year, and they were the worst defense in college football. But they won 5 games on that COVID schedule because they could just put points on the board with anybody. They won a lot of games, 40, 42, 38, things like that. State needs to be in that kind of mold this year. Now, I don't know if State has a Matt Corral, and I don't know if they've got a receiver who can do what Elijah Moore did that year. But the Jeff Lebby pattern has been to have a quarterback put up big numbers, to have a receiver sort of come out of nowhere to get 60, 70 catches, and to have one of the best running attacks in college football. Yeah. So that's what State's going to pay him to do, and he has to deliver it on in year one.
Well, and this has the feel for me. I'm going all the way back to the late '90s of Hal Mummy coming into Kentucky, and I know that's where Mike Leach comes from, and Levy as well. But Kentucky was fun to watch. I just get a feeling though that State will be fun to watch offensively.
That's kind of what they've been selling, And I asked Zach Selman, the athletic director, about it, and he said no. But I think he's just telling us that there was probably a little bit of a mission to get a guy who was exciting, because last year Mississippi State football was a bad product. And this is something I talk about a lot. This is an entertainment product. At the end of the day, we all love college football. Yeah. It's more than a game to us. But at the same time, if you're a Mississippi State fan and you got to drag your family from Jackson to Starkville and spend money on tickets and gas and hotel rooms and everything else, and then you watch your team score 3 points, you're asking yourself, why did I make this trip today?
Right.
And so with this, if nothing else, the game itself will be exciting, the product will be exciting, and that's something State has been looking for the past decade plus.
If you score points, as a fan, you think your team has a chance.
Exactly.
If you score points.
I go back. I keep making this comparison. Ole Miss's first year under Kiffin, they lost Alabama 63-48. It was an unbelievable game. Neither team could stop the other. Ole Miss fans left that game ecstatic because they're like, we can compete with them now. We
scored 48 points on Alabama.
Yes. And if we can just get a little better defensively, we can be competitive. That's exactly what Ole Miss has done. The offense has stayed the same. They keep getting better defensively, and now they're in the college football playoff picture.
Talk about that, though. Talk about Lane Kiffin will be here later today.
Yeah.
There's going to be expectations because of Nick Saban leaving, everybody says, well, Georgia's going to be number 1, Texas will be number 2, but you know what? I think Ole Miss could be number 3.
Could very easily happen.
But yeah, I mean, it's those are the expectations this year, and because of the portal.
Yeah, and I've been talking about. I feel like there's a division between title contenders and playoff contenders. Georgia and Texas are title contenders; they could win the national title.
Okay.
Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama this year. Tennessee. Those are playoff contenders. They can get into the playoff. Do I think they can go all the way through? I do not. So right now, Ole Miss is a playoff contender just because they still don't have the depth that the Georgias have. You watched that game when they played Georgia last year. Georgia mauled them on the offensive line, and Ole Miss was unable to stop them. Ole Miss goes out in the portal. They get Walter Nolan. They get Princely Umamamalayan. I believe I said that right. If I didn't,
I'm trying.
Between him and Tennessee's quarterback, man, it's going to be a long year for some pronunciations.
Yeah.
But they went out and got some defensive guys, but I don't know that they have the too deep that the Georgias and the Texases have.
Well, but before we let you go, tell us about, though, Mississippi State defensively. They've always been underrated. They turn out a lot of defensive linemen. Front seven's always good. They're always solid. Zach Arnett did do a good job on that side of the ball, but under Levy, what about defensively for year one?
First-year coordinator in Coleman Hutzler coming over from the University of Alabama. And just did not have a lot of success in the portal this year. And I think part of that was he's such an unknown commodity that it's tough to get guys to come in and play for a year for a coach they don't really know a lot about. It's not an NIL thing because you look at State on the offensive side of the ball, they got plenty of guys in. So State couldn't even get guys to visit Coleman Hutzler, and it's just been tough. So he's just going to have to work with what he had. If you look at recruiting rankings, there's a lot of guys who are 4-star kids, 5-star, not 5-star kids, but 4-star kids coming out of high school. And he's going to have to develop them up and do well. I don't know how it's going to go on that side of the ball. That's going to be the difference in State being a bowl team and State being not a bowl team is, can they just be below average defensively? If they're the 80th or 90th ranked defense in the country, they're going to be fine.
Schedule-wise?
Tough. They play, I told you about title contenders and playoff contenders. They play everybody except Alabama.
Woo!
And 4 of those are on the road. They're at Georgia, at Texas, at Tennessee, and at Ole Miss. That is a
how do Bulldog fans feel about not having Alabama on the schedule anymore?
Greg McElroy asked me this question last year, and I said, Greg, they threw a party. Now, the conference wasn't kind enough to let us skip out on Georgia as well.
Right.
But, yeah, Mississippi State fans, it was a fun historical series. I wouldn't call it a rivalry because
Right.
Alabama's dominated so much. Those years in the 90s where State was able to get some games, those were fun. The 1980 win is still talked about in Starkville, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's the SEC. You're going to be playing tough games every year, but it was nice to not. I mean, there's no thing about Mississippi State's schedule through the years. State doesn't play Alabama, doesn't play Auburn, doesn't play LSU.
Weird.
When I was a kid, those were the three of the last 4 games of the season every year.
Yeah.
With Ole Miss, so it's definitely different.
Well, okay. What's the best case scenario for Lebby in year one? Bowl.
The best case would be, I think, if you can get to 6. I think you can get to 6. So the best case to me would be finding a way to win one more game. Maybe that's Texas A&M at home.
Yeah.
As bad as State was last year and as good as Ole Miss was, they only lost that game by 10 points last year. So that rivalry, anything could happen. Finding a 7th win would be incredible for Jeff Lebby.
Yeah, well, Brian Haydad will be on 3 to 6 Super Talk Mississippi with Richard Cross, Michael Borky. Those guys do a great job, man.
Yep.
You do a great job at Super Talk, and
Thank
we
you.
always
Y'all
enjoy
too.
catching up with you, man.
Good
Appreciate
stuff.
it, Drew. Scott, thank you.
Thank
you. All right, Brian with us, 812. I tell you what, let's get a break in, shall we? You never know who's going to come to the table next. We're live from SEC Media Days, day 1 here at the Omni Hotel in downtown Dallas.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Everybody good with that?
Yes. Yes. And Mississippi State runs the table, too.
Yeah, Jeff Levy and Clark Lee, the game we never saw coming.
So your thoughts on the creamy coconut?
It's actually not bad. Wow. I wish it was zero sugar.
They're running out of flavors.
Creamy coconut.
40 grams of sugar, so I can't have it.
I'd rather just have a coconut. Yeah, oh, Creek, good. I tell you, I did get something the other day from the store. I got a fried pickle dip.
Oh, wow.
No.
What did you get?
No, it was, dude, incredible.
What was it?
Of course it was, though, right?
Hey, we had Vince 7 ESPN, The Zone, Scott Tyson, Drudy Armand. On a Monday morning, we're live from downtown Dallas in the Omni Hotel. It is day one of SEC Media Days. Game Day Men's Health, of course, helping us bring you day one coverage here from Dallas. And boy, one of the good things about SEC Media Days is that you put a chair out.
Yep.
And it's almost like Halloween. It's almost like putting a bowl of candy out there, and you never know who's going to stop by and just say hi.
Or something that's flavored like fried pickle dip, right? That's what we were
That
talking
actually
about.
sounds really good.
Yeah.
So we'll let our next guest tell us about it. And you can hear him every day and see him on Crane and Company. They're about 2 tables down from us. It is the first day, and so as a rite of passage, Jake Crane will join us, and he's going to join us throughout college football season. Jake, good morning, man. What's up, brother?
Man, it's number one, it's always great to talk to you guys as usual. But every time we come together at this time of year, it means we're a stone's throw away from toe meeting leather. And look, we can talk about fried pickle dip. We can talk about your creamy coconut flavored Dr. Pepper.
Not bad.
Which I think should maybe get you federally investigated. But either way, man, I'm ready for football. And with so many changes, it's going to be like seeing what you look like after a facelift.
So we talk a lot about Georgia, Texas, Alabama. We talk a lot about those because, they're always going to be probably near the top. But when we come here, the thing is there's always that one team that when we leave here and middle of the year, we're sitting there saying, wow, you know what? I thought they could be good. I didn't know if they could put it all together. Is there a team here in the league right now that we look at and we should be saying, you know what? If they can just do one thing or two things better, they could surprise somebody this year.
Sleeper.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the easy answer is Ole Miss or Missouri, right? With what they did last year, with what they have coming back, with what Ole Miss has done on the defensive side of the ball in the front seven, adding the depth they need to be able to win games in multiple ways. But, guys, I'm looking at Tennessee right now. And, Nico got a little bit of a run last year in the bowl game. You're going to have, I'll always say on Crane and Company, when you have a brand new quarterback at this level, you got to become a surfer as a fan. You got to ride the wave, the highs and the lows. But in this style of offense and the system that Josh Heupel and them run, not that it takes all the thinking out of it, but it's really just simple addition problems going very fast, right? And Tennessee defensively and what they've done up front, just like I was talking about Ole Miss, the biggest problem that Tennessee has had in the past is when you run this ultra fast style of offense, you've got to be able to have enough depth on defense to survive some of the games you have to survive. And I think they're to the point now where they can even at some points take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit and go the speed limit. They've got every piece, every ingredient. Nico just has to do what I believe halfway through the season he's really going to figure out how to do and make good decisions. And like Carrie Underwood said, let Jesus take the wheel because old boy's got a ton of talent.
So, but here's where I think he is going to be really good. I think they're off the offensively because that's who basically Josh Heupel is. I still question them defensively, though. That's where I'm a little shaky on them being a college football playoff contender.
Yeah, and again, I think in the system that they run, you don't have to be a top 15 defense to be able to make the college football playoff or win a game. You just got to be very opportunistic. But the problem is the way the depth you have on defense affects the speed that you can go on offense. So just having that depth there. Do they have the most NFL players on defense in the league? No, not even close. But I think they're good enough and they're deep enough to where Josh Heupel can let the Frankenstein monster out in the village on offense and let us start ripping villagers apart and not feel so bad about it in the back end.
What about a Kentucky and Mark Stoops? I mean, it's without Nick Saban, Mark Stoops now becomes the dean of coaches. Hard to believe that.
Yeah.
But where does the Kentucky fall into all of this year?
Well, and a lot of people, and they should, are going to talk about Brock Vandegrift coming over, getting his chance. I like the way he handles his business. It's really not enough sample size there for me to say, you know what, I think this guy's going to blow it up. I think what Kentucky has to do is get back to doing what made Mark Stoops and them successful, and that's being able to line up and push you around up front. And the last couple years, they've taken a step back on the line of scrimmage. Now, they've had some skill players. I mean, you look at Levis. I can go through the guys they've had at the skill position. That's great. But what separated Kentucky and what makes Mark Stoops, even when Calipari was there, I think the best coach in Lexington, I mean, he does more with less, and Calipari did less with more than just about anybody. But they've kind of shifted away from that identity. Not that I think Coach Stoops wanted to do that. It's just been the way it kind of went down. So if Kentucky can get back, and I think they can, to being a bully up front a little bit, and letting the ornaments of the tree shine, then I think you're going to get back, and that'll help Brock out and some of the weapons they have. But they got some young players that are really talented as well.
And what I love about you is you're such a fast riser on this side of the headset, but you were on the other side as a coach.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's about fit. And Wolford did a solid job at Alabama, but he really fit at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Having him back to kind of set the tone offensively to get back to what they are, I think will help Stoops this year.
Without a doubt. And I mean, you look at Liam too, a guy that went off to the Rams and ended up coming back. But and look, we talk about this all the time. You don't have to be from somewhere to be good at coaching somewhere, right? But there are places where you do have more of an advantage with the way that you are and the way that you coach, right? When he went to Alabama, you are part of the machine now. Right, you are just a cog in that machine. It's going to be done this way. I think at Kentucky, not that Stoops doesn't have his hands on the program. It's his show. He's the guy behind the curtain. But I think Coach Wofford, he does things a certain way, and there's certain things you can do at places you can't do at others. So if at all, Drew, it's just a mindset thing. Getting that guy back in the room that knows how to get it's not just X's and O's. Right. It's not just hand placement. You got to keep them inside, wash and replace if you get beat. That's not what it's getting guys to be able to play at their most efficient and maximum level every single week. And that's the hardest part. You hear Saban talk about it all the time. It's a faceless opponent. And you have some guys that can go in the room and they'll rah, we got Georgia this week. Rah, we got Alabama this week. The real ones, rah, we got us this week.
Right.
And I think that's what they're bringing back to Kentucky.
I want to stay with one of the unknowns again, and Drew's brought this one up as well many times. We don't know a lot about Oklahoma this year.
Well,
do we?
I mean, here's what I'll say. When I look at the math problem, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have to be Pythagoras to realize that brand new starting quarterback and replacing the whole offensive line probably is not a great recipe for success entering what is the Mordor of college football in the SEC. But they are talented.
Right.
I mean, Dion on the outside, he's an NFL player. He'll be one of the first wide receivers that end up getting taken. But what I've said about Texas and Oklahoma, because I think on the fringes of this, both sides on the fringe of the spectrum are wrong. You have one group on one side saying Texas and Oklahoma are just going to come in and get beat to death in the SEC. They're not going to do good. It's going to be terrible. I don't agree with that. Then on the other side, mainly Texas and Oklahoma fans, and that's okay, fans short for fanatical, are thinking, the SEC, we're going to come in here and run shop. Big 12 isn't that hard. But when you look at Oklahoma, it's the journey of going through. It's not the one-offs against Georgia. It's not the one-offs against Alabama.
Right.
It's the Kentucky's, the Ole Miss. I just see an offensive line that lost over 13,000 snaps. Yeah. I see a brand-new quarterback in Jackson Arnold that's got a ton of talent, but he doesn't have a lot of protection. It's like being a young NASCAR driver with no insurance on the car. You're just asking for it to be a disaster at some point.
Well,
that's funny.
And I got to say this, too. I think, though, And then Chuck Oliver just asked me this because I picked Alabama and Georgia once again to be in Atlanta because he asked me about Texas. And I said, I think Texas near the end is going to slip up, not get to Atlanta, but still likely get in the playoff. Because I think that A&M game at the end is very dangerous. And I think Elko, not enough is being said because of A&M being underachievers the last few years. But Elko is not a sexy hire, but I think he's the right one.
Look, and you know who loves something not being said more than anybody? Mike Elko. That's who you haven't heard this Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, tit for tat with coaches, all this prima donna stuff. You know what they're doing? They're working on blocking and tackling and hitting the sled and making the fundamental play and not getting stemmed at DB. Mike Elko, we talk about guys that get everything out of every player. Texas A&M is scary, especially week one. Notre Dame's they're walking into a bad situation week one because I'm telling you, Connor Wegman is the quarterback that nobody's talking about that they should be.
Florida Gators and Billy Napier has probably the toughest 5-game stretch that I have seen.
The glare.
Yeah. I mean, I apologize for the sun.
No, I was thinking about Florida's schedule. I was trying not to get
it's brutal.
But that is probably the worst 5. We talk about how brutal an SEC schedule is, but that Florida schedule, that 5-game stretch, has got to be one of the toughest that I have seen in a long time.
I said that Florida's schedule this year is like walking into your house with the lights off and getting jumped by a group of ninjas with baseball bats. That's the only way I can. That's the only way I know how to describe it. But I will say, I think week one against Miami, that game is worth 3 years for both programs. For both programs. Not that Mario's on the same seat that Billy is,
right?
But they lose all this talk about how bad Florida's going to be, and all the Miami fans and Florida State fans, even UCF fans, and hell, the USF fans at this point are pointing at Florida, just laughing at them like the kid who got a wedgie at recess. And if you let Florida beat you week one, that's a problem in Miami. But guys, you know, Graham Mertz surprised me last year.
Yes.
He did. Florida's got some pieces. But this thing's either going to be over or Billy's going to be safe, I think, within the first 4 to 5 games. I really believe that. Because, look, they beat Miami. I mean, there's a good chance you may be 4-0 and absolutely have flipped the script going into the back half of the season. So, again, you know, you want those opportunities, but Florida's got the toughest schedule in the country.
And my final question, can Pittman survive? I don't see a way. Or are we going to see him being the next O-line coach at Georgia back with Kirby like Saban used to bring guys back?
Yeah, I think you may see him on the lake. That's where I think you may see him. I'm looking at Rhett Lashley really hard at that job at Arkansas right now.
Really?
And look, I hate it for Coach Pittman. Every time I've interviewed him, I've talked to him.
Great guy,
He's been unbelievably transparent. But it goes back to, you know, you can be the best guy in the world. You can walk old ladies across the street. You can buy Girl Scout cookies every time they come to the door. But if you're not winning, it doesn't matter. In fact, you could be a bad person, but as long as you're winning, look at their offensive coordinator. As long as you're winning, it doesn't matter. So I hate it for Coach Pittman. I'm looking at that roster. I just don't see it, guys. And I don't see it up front. And that's probably the saddest part, just to put a bow on it, is that Sam Pittman, his forte is the line of scrimmage. That is his bread and butter. And that's probably been one of the biggest letdowns that they've had, and probably the reason he's not going to be there after this year.
But did Sam Pittman serve and do what he was supposed to do, and that is get Arkansas out of the dumps where it was when he took over, and build it up to where they can go out and go higher and make that job attractive, because it was not attractive when he took it over.
I mean, I think that's a very optimistic way to look at it. I don't think that's wrong, but I feel like the standard and expectation at Arkansas, even as bad as they have been in the past, there was a lot of excitement around Coach Pittman. Guys, think about the Texas game.
2 years ago,
Like, I mean, this was the hottest.
I'm mauling.
This was, oh, here we go. Arkansas's back. You know, now Jerry Jones wants to be friends with everybody again. But I would say, Scott, that's probably the optimist way that they're looking at it right now, because, you know, you hate to put Sam Pittman on the raft and push him down the river. You'd rather be able to say, hey, thanks for being a bridge candidate.
Yes.
I guess, as they call it. But unfortunately, I think he may be the first one to go.
Well, 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Crane and Company will be here all week on Radio Row and on television on YouTube, covering SEC Media Days. We appreciate it. And what are you most looking forward to this week, man?
Man, you know, I tell you, a lot of it is just the camaraderie doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get to see everybody like this a lot, you know, and having it up at Nashville was great. I could sleep in my own bed and then come and see you guys. But look, talking to the coaches is great. Seeing the players, seeing who's going to say the one thing they shouldn't say, you know, a la Mike Gundy last week. It's fun.
Should he not have said what he said?
I think he should have said what he said, but in a different way. I think he could have said it in a different way. I've done it 1,000 times thing. Like, you know, you can say he's a human being. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. Thought he got a little bit too specific. We're going to punish him by giving him the ball 50 times a game. Like, even though we know you've got to give him the ball 50 times a game. I don't know. I feel like there was a way to say that. I feel like he was trying to be genuine. It just came out almost
kind of
indifferent, you know, and arrogant-ish. But, I mean, who's got more job security than that guy to be able to say that? I mean, that's a pretty good gig.
No doubt. Well, you got a pretty good gig too, bud. And keep it up. Keep up the great work. Looking forward to the addition to your family. But thank you for joining us, brother.
Man, I just hope she looks like my wife. So no, I appreciate it. Love coming on with you guys. You know how much respect I have for y'all. And
thanks, Jake.
Look, let's get the season going.
Thank you.
All right, it's 8:31. Day one of SEC Media Days will roll on. After this, we're live from the Omni Hotel in Dallas. There you go. Play with it. If it don't work, go ahead. I mean, you can make it work or not. Welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. I found the fresh fruit buffet. And that was a beautiful. Oh, those red raspberries are fantastic. Just starting to learn faces and people and places and all kinds of good stuff. It's day one of SEC Media Days here from the Omni Hotel in downtown Dallas. 256-576-4977. We have had, we just had Jake Crane on.
Awesome.
And it was good to talk to Jake because it was more about the teams that we haven't talked a lot about.
Yeah.
And not teams that we will talk a lot about. There'll be a lot of talk about the Georgias, the Texas, the Alabamas. There'll be a lot of talk about those. But it was great to talk to Jake about the Kentuckys, about the Missouris, about the A&Ms, the ones that may come out of nowhere. I don't think they will, but ones that may turn a few heads this new year.
Well, I hope Steve's all right. He's kind of limping already. We're early on day one. But speaking of that, prayers out to John Frary, who we always catch up with here.
Yeah.
He was in a car accident yesterday, got rear-ended. I know the feeling. Hopefully John's going to be okay. And I think he's a little bit banged up and sore. I was catching up with our good friend Mark McLeod. So John Frary may not be here this week. So
wow.
But prayers out to him. He's a great guy from WFOY, and we always talk Gators with him. We're going to try to catch up with Mark this week as well. Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com, part of the Rivals Network. They're likely going to be the favorite in this league. And Kirby will speak tomorrow at 9:05, and we'll carry that here on 97.7 The Zone. But we are going to catch up with Anthony Dasher here in a few minutes from UGAsports.com.
All right, 256-576-4977. Again, coming up at 9:05 this morning, you will be able to hear the commissioner, Greg Sankey. If you were writing Greg Sankey's speech, what would be one or two things that you would put out there? Because Greg Sankey's message is not always just about the conference. It's about college football. It's about the sport. It's about the NCAA. It's about a lot of things. What's one or two things, if you were writing Greg Sankey's speech today, that you would, the message that you would put out there?
Well, I would put out that the SEC is the strongest league in the country. There's nobody that gets the coverage like the SEC. It's an honor to have officially now Texas and OU be a part of this conference. The goal for the SEC is to have multiple teams every year in the college football playoff, right, and to continue their domination of it and to hear the grow the SEC network. Very excited about the relationship now with ESPN and the new era for the SEC and ABC and things of that nature. Things are turned. The page has turned. Very excited for to see the new era at Alabama,
right,
and to have Nick Saban now covering this league as part of for college football media on the other side. And hopefully he and Greg Sankey can work hand in hand to continue to try to get this sport as healthy as it's been from the NIL perspective, from of course the transfer portal, and continue to grow the sport and make it healthy and make it something that where coaches, they're not looking to go to the NFL. They're looking to be in college football because it's the best stage for them to create a career.
All right, so that's Greg Sankey. 9:05, we'll hear the State of the Conference address, and it's always one that a lot of people from around the country, not even just within the league, but it's an address that a lot of people from around the country want to tune into, because usually what Greg Sankey says kind of reverberates, and it'll carry into the Big Ten media days. It'll carry into other conferences, because what Greg Sankey says is usually it's pretty interesting. Now, coming up then after that, Brian Kelly will be live at 10 a.m., the LSU coach. And this is year 3. Hard to believe, year 3 for Brian Kelly at LSU.
Yeah, really solid start to his career at LSU. Beat Alabama in year 1. He overcame a horrendous defense to have a Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels and win 10 football games. So LSU is, had 2 really solid years. Now they need to take that jump into being a college football playoff participant
Yeah.
with the SEC. Being the strongest league in the country and the field expanding to 12. So Brian Kelly's done a really solid job. I think he's a top 4 or 5 coach in the SEC, not top 2, but we'll see about that. So, but I think LSU's program is very healthy right now, and I look forward to hearing from Brian Kelly later today.
They returned 37 letter winners from last year. They have 17 on offense and 17 on defense. They lost 10 letter guys and 12 from defense last year. They have 16 starters back, 7 on offense and 6 on defense. All right, let's slip one in real fast. When I say slip one in, let's slip a break in, because when we come back, we will talk some Georgia football. Give us a couple minutes from SEC Media Days live from the Omni Hotel in downtown Dallas. Welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. It is a 8:47 on a Monday morning. We're live from day one of the 2024 SEC Media Days, live from downtown Dallas here at the Omni Hotel. And we've talked a lot about today. We've talked about Ole Miss. We've talked about Mississippi State. We've talked about Texas A&M. We've talked about Alabama. But just like it was last year, when we leave SEC Media Days and they put the preseason order of finish out, the Georgia Bulldogs will be number one, expected to repeat as regular season champions in the Southeastern Conference.
Well, I mean, they won 29 games in a row before Alabama halted that. Then were very impressive against Florida State in the bowl game.
Yes.
They've got the number one coach in the league now. Nick Saban has moved on. There is no doubt in my mind now that Kirby is number one. He's been climbing that ladder since he took this job back in 2017. He's won 2 national championships. He's going to be trying to win a third, and he's going to have a great football team. He lost a lot of talent and some coaches, and we're going to talk about it with one of our favorite people, the managing editor of UGAsports.com, part of the Rivals Network, and that's Anthony Dasher. Dash, what's up, man?
Guys, just getting into town, ready for the show.
Yeah, I think we're all ready for it. Kirby will lead us off tomorrow. Yeah. But they got, first of all, the most important piece, the quarterback is back.
Yeah.
With a full year under his belt. We talked to Jim Nagy to lead off the show. They invited Carson Beck to the Senior Bowl last year, but he decides to come back. Second year with now pelts on the wall, and that's always a great spot to start when you have a good quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt. That's where it all begins and really where it ends, too. I mean, if you want to compete for an SEC championship or a national championship, you've got to have a quarterback, a quality quarterback in place, and Georgia does have that. And Carson Beck had a fantastic season last year,
really
replacing Stetson Bennett. And from everything we understand, he's has had a great all season. He had a great spring, done everything he's supposed to do in the summertime, and he's got some added weapons, more weapons, I think, this even with the loss of somebody like Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. They've added some more guys that they think that Carson can help push them into promise a little bit.
Talk about some of those guys.
Oh, well, gosh, I tell you what, they've hit the transfer portal, number one.
Yes.
And I think Kobe Young, a wide receiver from Miami, I think is going to have a huge role, with the team next year. Also added Michael Jackson the third from Southern Cal, and London Humphrey from Vanderbilt is another receiver. But the biggest one of all is Trevor Etienne, who has come in from Florida to augment that running game. He's going to, not the Georgia's running back. They were effective last year, but they did not have a guy, a quote-unquote home run hitter, somebody who could really do a lot of damage. A draftable, draft pick type running back. And they have that this year. I mean, Trevor, aside from being a very good running back, is also a very good receiver. He caught, I think, 30 balls for the Gators, if not mistaken, last year. So I think having him as part of that mix now is really going to be special for Georgia.
The one thing that I would not want to have to do is buy groceries for this offensive line. They are some big boys.
Yeah. Yeah, they are some big boys. And what's wild, the guys they've just signed over the past year are even bigger than what they've got right now.
Including your 6'11" guy.
They just signed a guy 6'11", 350 pounds. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I was a former basketball player. I actually played with Bronny James.
Right.
It was coached by LeBron. And
how talented? I know they're big, but how talented is this offensive line?
I think it's very talented. I mean, all these guys, and all of them have experience too. I mean, the one change is going to be at center, but otherwise, you're talking guys who have played just a ton of SEC snaps. Ernest Green Jr., I think you'll see him take the next step. At left tackle, he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 6'4", about 310, and he's not that hasn't made the height.
Not the biggest.
He's 6'4", 310.
Well, you consider Georgia's got 6'6" and 330 pounds and more. Yeah. From that standpoint, but it's all these guys though, or don't miss many meals. I'll say that.
Well, okay, tell us about the staff. We know you retained the coordinators, which is huge, and Mike Bobo and of course Glenn Schumann. Will Muschamp moving on to an analyst role, but talk about the new faces on the staff.
I'll tell you what, we've only got 4 of them to talk about. One, James Coley, comes back with Georgia with Texas A&M, left for a couple of years. Now he's back as a wide receivers coach.
Right.
I think he really helps the standpoint of he's really good recruiting South Florida. That's where Georgia may have been kind of missing it a little bit. They've got him back now at running back. They got Josh Crawford coming up from Georgia Tech to replace Del McGee. Went over to come to head coach at Georgia State. And, of course, the big one, Travaris Robinson, coming over from Alabama. Going to coach the safety is listed as co-defensive coordinator with Glenn Schumann. Great coach, great recruiter. And that's one common denominator. You look at all of Kirby's assistants, you can put that great recruiter, next to maybe all of a sudden, maybe, Josh Crawford's a young guy, maybe not quite as proven yet, but from all we've heard from the recruits that he's after right now, speak very highly of him. Other than that, Dante Williams comes over from Southern Cal as a new secondary coach, so it's cornerback coach. So it's a good staff, it looks like, anyway.
Yeah, well, the expectations are this year, to win the national championship. They come up short last year in that quest. But obviously this year, locked and loaded. But Carson Beck is going to have to shoulder that responsibility.
He will, and like I said, I think they with the pieces they've added around him, and I think you'll see Carson Beck take some incremental improvement from what he did last year. I think that experience in the SEC championship game of coming up short, I think that's kind of motivated him a little bit.
Okay.
And they still got a pretty tough schedule. Going to Tuscaloosa is still not going to be easy. Going to Austin, Texas is not going to be easy. But they feel with Carson, they've got a quarterback who's got that mental capacity combined with a physical talent to make some things happen for them.
Talk about that Alabama game though. That visit to Tuscaloosa. It was Kirby Smart, Nick Saban versus forever. But now it's Kirby Smart, Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
Is there more pressure on not, I don't want to say pressure. Pressure's not the right word.
Yeah.
But is there a feeling that this is a game that Kirby has to win?
I think more now is expected of Kirby since Nick is no longer.
Okay.
That's a great way to
Alabama. I'll put it that way. So I don't know if pressure is the right word.
Yeah, pressure's not the right.
But I think Kirby expects more now that he's the veteran coach, so to speak. In this game.
Yes.
And again, I fully expect Kevin DeBoer have a very good squad at Alabama. Again this year, but this still to a certain extent. I know Georgia beat Alabama for the national title. A couple of years ago, but there's still that little bit, I think, of a Crimson Tide mystique that hangs over the Georgia program after what happened in the SEC championship game last year that Georgia still needs to find a way to overcome.
Very loaded roster still, but what is the biggest question for Anthony Dasher going into camp?
Probably youth in the secondary. Again, they've got some great young players, but you're at one corner, you may wind up seeing them starting a true freshman. Stars.
He's never been afraid to do that.
He's never been afraid to do that. You've got 2 or 3 guys who are going to be playing, I think, significant snaps that are going to be very young, and probably to me that's probably the only real worry. I have. They lost Brock Bowers. They replaced him. Went to Stanford and got a tight end. Their tight end, and he's put up some really good numbers. For the Cardinals the past 2 years, and linebacker I think they're loaded, especially on the inside. Mm-hmm. It's a deep team, but again, I just think the youth in the secondary running probably my biggest question right now.
Well, schedule's not easy though. This is. I know you talked about going to Alabama, but finally we get to see Georgia, Oklahoma, right? Is Oklahoma on the schedule this year?
It'll
be
Texas.
Texas,
yes. Georgia and Texas.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun game to watch. You talk about the preseason rankings. It may wind up being a deal where Georgia picked 1, Texas maybe pick number 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's so crazy is they played Texas and Alabama. They could see either one of them back in Atlanta now without divisions.
Oh, no doubt about it. I think all 3 of those teams. I think you're talking playoff teams, regardless of what happens. I think during the regular season, I think all 3 of those teams are going to find a way to get into this 12-team mix.
Thank you, Dash.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yep.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for day 1 of SEC Media Day coverage here for Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Don't forget Greg Sankey, 9:05. Listen to 97.7 ESPN The Zone. We'll carry it for you live.
Got it.
reminder that preseason All-SEC ballots will registered media on Tuesday afternoon. We'll have until 5 p.m. on Thursday to submit your ballots in predicted order of finish. The results will be announced on Friday. Appreciate your cooperation and voting for preseason All-SEC teams and predicted order of finish. Here in a few minutes, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. When we get to the coaches portion of the press conferences, a reminder, they'll give an opening statement and then we'll have a Q&A. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. We do ask that you state your name and your affiliation before asking your question, and we'll get to that. Eddie Fuller, among others.
Hello and welcome into SEC Media Days. Welcome into the Morning Blitz. John Abraham, Captain Cool, not alongside my good friend Bandyman Bailey Lowry, but he is in the studio wishing me the best of luck out here in Dallas, Texas, where, well, the energy is getting started. Greg Sankey is getting up to the podium, and we're about to have a lot of fun all day long. It's going to be SEC coaches, SEC everything. We're going to get to hear a lot about Texas. We're going to hear a lot about Oklahoma. And we're also going to hear a lot about, well, who's going to be the top tier teams in the league. Bandyman, I know the stream can't hear you, but I know everybody else can. How are you doing today, man? Be quick with it, though, because we're about to hop right into the main press conference. Yes, sir. Oh, my gosh. Bandy, I am just as excited as you are for the college football game. I also bought it yesterday so I could have it today. I'm going to get to the Airbnb tonight, and I'm going to play the heck out of it, okay? It's going to be what I used to study to get into all of the amazing things that we are going to be getting into, well, here and what we're going to be getting into soon, as college football is just right around the corner. But I got to say, the trip down here was amazing. The vibes here are wonderful. But, again, I appreciate you, the Chad, all you guys back at home, keeping the shows running. And, I mean, it's just going to be a wonderful day. I mean, we've already talked with plenty of guys on the Talking Ball show. If you guys want to watch what we got going down here, you can go and check us out over on WZZN TV, where we got the live stream going. You guys can comment, all that stuff. It could pop up on the screen. We'll be showing you guys off as well as, of course, we get closer and closer to the actual SEC action with the coaches. Brian Kelly going to start us off, and then throughout the day, we're going to have Shane Beamer. We're going to have Clark Lee. We're going to have, of course, Lane Kiffin. I'm going to be getting a lot of pictures of those dudes, and we're going to be throwing them right at you. So let me see what's going on in the main room. We got nothing right now, but it is coming around the corner. Biggest questions, I think, that are going to be asked for Greg Sankey, of course, SEC commissioner, going to be about, of course, this new league that we got, the 16 teams. It's a totally different landscape here in the Southeast, and I guess middle of the West. I don't really know exactly. This is the farthest out west I've been. So I'm going to say it's the West. Still got that central time zone, though. Feels a little bit, I'll say, later in the day, earlier in the day. I don't know, than it would in like Huntsville or Nashville or Birmingham or any of those other places. But definitely still up and at 'em. I got my first cup of coffee, and we're going crazy. All right, we're going crazy. Drive down here, filling it up with 4 radio hosts. Gotta admit, I'm gonna have a ranking about who was the smelliest. I'd probably be 2. I'm not gonna say any of the other guys. I'm not gonna out them like that, but I would definitely say that I was number 2. I made sure though that everybody put deodorant on beforehand, because that would have been a smelly car from McCurry Motors. We appreciate them, as well as University Kia, for helping us out with the travel. Tom and the big man, Wes Neighbors, got a little plane ticket, so they flew out here. We still made it before them, though. We still made it before them. Let me check what Greg Sankey's up to. They're getting stuff ready over there. You can hear it over on the station. And, well, we're going to throw it over there here in a moment. Let me check the clock. We're getting close. Bandy, get ready, man. Greg Sankey going to be talking all things SEC. Everybody's going to get pumped for that, including myself, as well as the rest of Radio Row. Now 16 strong. It just means more. Cannot wait to get home after this and play some college football 25, baby. I cannot wait. It's going to be wonderful. They're still prepping it up in the main room. Greg Sankey right around the corner. You guys won't want to miss it again. You will be able to comment if you are watching on WZZN TV. We will be answering questions over there. They will pop up on the screen while that stuff's going down. I'm a one-man show right here, and Bandy's, of course, running it on the main webs. It's been forever since we've done a show, Bandy, and I got to admit, a little bit shaky. I've been from Florida, 10-hour drive there, 10-hour drive back. Throw in 4 hours because I went up to Palm Coast, and then 10 hours here. So it's going to be like 45 hours altogether in the span of a few weeks. Let's see what Greg Sankey's up to. They're still prepping it with the deep voice man on the other side. Benny, you got anything for me before we get into Greg Sankey? I don't even know if Benny's listening anymore. Either way, right around the corner, Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, will be getting to us. Then at 9:00, later on in the day, we'll have Brian Kelly starting off the coaches. Here we go. We're getting there. Clock is ticking down. Greg Sankey is walking.
Welcome Southeastern Conference Commissioner Greg Sankey to the podium. Greg?
You're totally fine.
No applause necessary.
Greg Sankey is now on the podium. We're going to throw it to him, and he will take care of the rest. Enjoy what the commissioner's got to say, and enjoy the rest of SEC Media Days Day 1.
But I'm not really confident in what behavior that may encourage. So I want to give my first shout out to George Somerville, who I was interacting with on Twitter, College Football Chaps podcast, getting here from London. So George, you're first. Second is a guy named Ben Burnell, I think, who captured me for the first interview of SEC Football Media Days yesterday in Utica, New York, right at the finish line of a 15K, which is a new level of hustle being tracked with your race results. And the third would go to Nick Saban, who apparently was denied access because he didn't have his credential this morning and had to go back to his room. So we teach those lessons quickly. It's great for us, though, to be here in Dallas, Texas for the SEC's 2024 version of Football Media Days. We're thrilled to be in a city where Dak is the quarterback, where the Dallas Mavericks made a run to the NBA Finals with a number of players from the SEC, including Kentucky's PJ Washington's, Arkansas's Daniel Gafford, and South Carolina's AJ Lawson, where our 2019 Women's Basketball Player of the Year and Mississippi State alum Tiara McCown is part of the Dallas Wings, where over in Arlington, Florida's Wyatt Langford is having an impact in his rookie season for the Texas Rangers. And tomorrow night in Globe Life Field, Paul Skeens from LSU, now a Pittsburgh Pirate, will take the mound as the starting pitcher for the National League in the All-Star game. To build my local credibility, back in 1991, I was here in Dallas for a set of meetings. I was with Bobby Williams, who's now the athletics director at Sam Houston State University, and we said, hey, you want to go out to Arlington Stadium? Those of you who are locals will remember Arlington Stadium, before the ballpark and before Globe Life Field. Nolan Ryan was pitching that night against the Toronto Blue Jays, and I brought, just to prove my credibility, the ticket from his 7th no-hitter that I attended while I lived here in Dallas, because I spent 11 great years of my career here. Our 2 daughters were born just north in McKinney, Texas. I occupied offices along North Central Expressway when I worked for the Southland Conference, and it's great to be back in Texas representing the 16 universities of the Southeastern Conference, and following a video that began with words like Billy Cannon running, Manning rolling, Manning looking. It was Archie Manning back in 1969 in Legion Field on a game, the first televised Saturday night game we had on ABC. It's Larry Munson yelling for Lindsey Scott. It's a statement that here history runs deep. And then you saw Pat, as in Pat Summitt, and Perry, as in Perry Wallace, and Goose Gibbons shooting over Duke in the 1978 Final Four. And you heard 3 words: passion, rivalry, family. You saw confettis, you saw trophies, you saw champions, you saw celebrations, you saw a quarterback leading the marching band, and you saw Olympic medalists after Olympic medalists. That's the imagery to which we're accustomed in the SEC. And then you saw something new. You saw Bevo, and you saw the Sooner Schooner, and you heard from 14 deep to 16 strong. 16 is our today, and 16 is our tomorrow. Those 16 universities represent a currently enrolled student body of right at 500,000, a global network of 5 million living alums and former students, direct local economic and state impact exceeding $100 billion annually, a number that will continue to grow. And the innovative nature of these universities has caused us in the Southeastern Conference, through the collective campus work, to be the first collegiate athletic conference to convene an artificial intelligence consortium that's already creating research and collaboration and programming partnerships, including a faculty education program about how you manage artificial intelligence in the university learning environment. We've already engaged over 1,000 of our faculty in education around that important topic, a new topic, an emerging topic in which we intend to lead as campuses. We also gather Thursday here at Football Media Days to hear from a panel labeled Artificial Intelligence in Sports panel that takes place. And I encourage you to join in that opportunity. And staying in the technology sector with the changes taking place in college football, I'm pleased to acknowledge that as we explore new ways to use technology in our competitive experience and in competitive experiences and to advance the sport of football, we're proud to work with Apple to introduce iPads for sideline use during the upcoming football season to elevate the performance of our student athletes. You know, the college football rule change that's gone into effect this fall permits teams to use this video resource And the large multi-touch display of an iPad combined with its amazing performance and incredible portability, I know has benefited me on a daily basis, and it makes it the ideal solution for our coaches and student athletes to use in-game video efficiently. The now 16 athletic programs in the SEC last year earned 11 total national championships. The SEC is the only conference to participate in every one of the 14 college football playoffs. For the 18th consecutive year, we led all leagues with the most NFL players drafted at 59. We're excited about this year's College Football Hall of Fame inductees that include Kentucky's Tim Couch, Arkansas's Dan Hampton, Alabama's Antonio Langham, and Texas A&M's Kevin Smith. And we're pleased to celebrate with new member, University of Oklahoma, the induction of Dewey Selman, who's both an Oklahoma legend and the father of Mississippi State University Athletic Director Zach Selman. In the NBA playoffs that I mentioned a moment ago, players who had played on SEC teams were represented in a greater number than any other conference with 49. 1/3 of this year's WNBA All-Star roster are from the SEC. For the 2024 Major League Baseball season, we had 88 players on opening day rosters, and yesterday saw 20 players taken in this year's Major League Baseball draft. You're probably tired of hearing me say it, but those numbers are the most of any conference. For the 25th straight year, we led the nation in football attendance. For the 28th consecutive year, we led the nation in college baseball attendance, having 8 of the top 10 attendance leaders in 2024. Our softball already led the nation in attendance, nearly doubling the next closest conference. The same is true in women's gymnastics. And one of the growth sports for us, women's soccer, led in both average and total attendance during the 2023 season across the country. We're also proud to have finished yet again with another SEC versus SEC College World Series championship final this year. It was Tennessee and Texas A&M, the 6th overall SEC versus SEC baseball final, the 3rd in the past 4 years. But if you adjust our membership, and remember it was Oklahoma and Ole Miss a few years ago, SEC teams have been consistently filling the national championship series. There's a total of 21 times across all sports where a national champion, but those numbers are the most of any conference. For the 25th straight year, we led the nation in football attendance. For the 28th consecutive year, we led the nation in college baseball attendance, having 8 of the top 10 attendance leaders in 2024. Our softball already led the nation in attendance, nearly doubling the next closest conference. The same is true in women's gymnastics. And one of the growth sports for us, women's soccer, led in both average and total attendance during the 2023 season across the country. We're also proud to have finished yet again with another SEC versus SEC College World Series championship final this year. It was Tennessee and Texas A&M, the 6th overall SEC versus SEC baseball final, the 3rd in the past 4 years. But if you adjust our membership, and remember it was Oklahoma and Ole Miss a few years ago, SEC teams have been consistently filling the national championship series. There's a total of 21 times across all sports where a national championship, like women's tennis this year between Georgia and Texas A&M, involved 2 SEC teams. When we look ahead to the Paris Olympic Games, there are a total of 270 Olympians with SEC ties. 85 will populate the Team USA roster. 42 of those U.S. Olympians are returning Olympic competitors, and 43 will be first-time Olympians. And we will have every one of our 16 universities represented on the U.S. Olympic roster. And that roster in U.S. track and field includes 35% of that roster being comprised of representatives from SEC universities. In swimming and diving, it's 37% of that roster. And we will have representatives on all 4 of the U.S. Olympic basketball teams, the men's basketball 5-on-5 team, the women's basketball 5-on-5 team, and the same in both the men's and women's 3-on-3 teams. But let's go back for a moment to our opening video. And while I'd rather talk about all-stars and champions and Olympians, I want to focus on some words you probably missed. We said in that video that was used to celebrate the additions of Oklahoma and Texas as new members just a few weeks ago, that it's time to update. It's time to update your expectations for what college athletics can be. And many of you have written or opined about this being a unique time for college athletics. Time for movement, obviously, and a time of change. And we as leaders are responsible for navigating what really are, for us in college sports, uncharted waters of change. And we're doing so at a time when the pressures to recruit, to win, to draw people in are just as high as they've ever been. But we've added a set of external factors, the litigation that presses in, state level legislation, conversations with Congress, and the emergence of the next great idea that is sold or pitched as something that will quickly and fully resolve the issues currently faced in college sports. But the reality is there is no easy button we can just go push to resolve the issues we face. And there's no magic pill. And anytime you go through a reset, it is difficult. This past Saturday evening, we were reminded of the stress and divisiveness that's present in our nation, well beyond any playing field. We know that elections are fundamental in these United States of America, and none of us are expected to all agree on how votes should be cast. In fact, probably most of us try to avoid those conversations at family gatherings. We'd rather talk about the weather, talk about how the kids or the grandkids are doing in school, where somebody's going on vacation, or maybe who's going to win the game on the upcoming Saturday. When you attend one of those games on Saturday and you look around, you see Democrats and you see Republicans. You see liberals and conservatives. You see those who work in a white-collar setting and those who work in a blue-collar setting. You see young and old, families and individuals, people from every religious background, every demographic range in this nation. And this sidebar is not about politics. It's actually about what we do on Saturday, that comfortable point of conversation at those family gatherings. These remarks are about the ability of people to come together even when there are differences. And on Saturdays in this country, for decade after decade, people come together. We actually need more of what we do in college sports. And in college sports and in college football in particular, we know, there's an opponent on the field, and spread across a stadium, there's apparel from the opposing teams, one dominant, one in the minority. But in those stadiums, I've stood with sometimes 100,000 or more to sing the national anthem, sometimes thinking that the entire stadium is actually participating. I've joined in those stadiums as you watch maybe a Chinook helicopter fly over, a B-2 bomber, or an F-22, just amazed. And then celebrated a little bit later in the game when during a break we stop and we bring the flight crew onto the field and celebrate them for their service. I've heard the absolute silence in a crowd of thousands of people revved up and ready to go, who stand for a moment to honor someone we've lost. We actually need more of those unifying moments in this country, and that's why I say again, we need more of what college football does in this nation, not less. We need more of what college sports does, because that unity I talked about and those variances that exist within a crowd aren't just in a football stadium. You see them at baseball games and basketball games and along all of those sports that I cited just a moment ago. In fact, if you drove in on a morning to Hoover, Alabama, to our baseball tournament, you would see tents pitched with university logos and colors of a particular fan base. And it's not long before somebody else starts to trickle in. And I can recall this year seeing a South Carolina tent pitched right as I drove in, and underneath there are Vanderbilt fans and Tennessee fans gathered having a conversation. They're actually smiling despite being dressed differently. Under an Auburn tent, Florida fans and Georgia fans gather for those same conversations. That's the reality that we need and the lessons that we can learn through college sports. We need more of those unifying moments. And again, I'll say we need more of what college football and college sports does and can do, because we're at a time filled with uncertainty. And that exists in our culture in a big picture, and it exists in college sports. On May 23rd, the plaintiffs, a set of lawsuits along with the NCAA, the ACC, the Big Ten, Big 12, SEC, and Pac-12 announced agreement on terms of a settlement related to a set of lawsuits. And while that agreement does not resolve every issue and it is not a finish line, it does provide an opportunity for us to move forward in modernizing important elements of college sports. There's a lot of work still to be done. There's work to finalize the full terms of a settlement agreement. Beyond just terms is the hard work of implementing the outcome of that agreement. We are literally working to make what would normally be a decade's worth of change in a matter of months. We're not in a world either where we're allowed to focus on just one issue or even one small set of issues at any particular time. As you know, there are other lawsuits. We have state attorneys general that have engaged in lawsuits against the NCAA. We have state legislatures continuing to enact or change laws that govern how we conduct college athletics. There are outside ideas that come from those apparently associated with private equity firms, professional leagues, search firms, former executives from leading media companies who want to insert their thinking. We have new wave entrepreneurs who want to be in on the so-called front end of a new paradigm for college athletics. But it's our leadership responsibility to figure this out. And in a moment, I'm going to repeat some things I've repeated in past years. And you could rightly, potentially say, well, there he goes again. But you know what? Change doesn't happen in an instant. And we're dealing with an incredibly complex set of issues that when I sit down with some of those leaders in the areas that I mentioned, and I describe the various challenges we face, it is universal. Whether it's a professional league commissioner, a member of Congress, a high-level attorney, at some point they'll look at me and say, that's the most complicated situation I've ever heard. That's why there's no easy button. But we have the responsibility on our university campuses to constantly be evaluating and exploring the best partnerships and innovations that protect the collective interests of our universities while also tackling new legal and political realities. But you know what? We also have to do that in a way that continues to engage with our fans, that continues to honor the traditions that are important to our campuses and our communities. And yes, we're going to seek to capitalize on new revenue opportunities that support our athletics programs and our student athlete participants. We've been incredibly successful, and I understand why so many outside of the campus and conference realm are interested in coming in and being a part of it. But that responsibility lies with us to bring people into the solution, not to cede authority to external actors. We know who we are. In the Southeastern Conference, we're the one conference at this level where the name still means something. The southeastern part of the United States, where when we expanded, we actually restored historic rivalries while adding only 100 miles to the longest campus-to-campus trip our student athletes will experience. We're a conference where in survey after survey, we have the most avid fans by comparison. Not just the most draft picks, not just the most teams in a championship, but the people around our programs who want us to lead. Again, not give authority away. They're passionate about their team and the competition among their team and their rivals in the Southeastern Conference. We have dates that have meaning, that we understand in this culture. They're passionate about those longtime rivalries, passionate about the opportunity to spend a Saturday in their favorite football stadium, maybe visit a new place, or maybe from time to time tour all the stadiums in the SEC. We in the SEC, we know the importance of education, what it can mean in the life of a young person. You know what? There's more money involved. We also know that there's more graduation success involved, and there's more opportunities to bring people back who may have left after their playing experience was complete without finishing their degree. Nobody needs to tell us to provide that opportunity. That's who we are. The number of former competitors I encounter, whether they're Olympians now or professional athletes who had an SEC playing experience, maybe they're on the sideline to be presented an award or just to be honored for what they contributed to that campus. Frequently, I'll ask, well, why did you decide to come back? And with the same level of frequency, those young people tell me, this became home. That doesn't happen with some set of abstract ideas. It happens because there was something very different about college athletics in the Southeastern Conference than there is at the professional level. We know we have a responsibility to deal with our shortcomings. We know we have to act to solve our own problems, and we're doing that just now. But we want the college football playoff. America wants the Final Four. We desire a college World Series or a college cup, and to do so, we need national standards. And here's where I restate some things I've said before. I'm actually the voice of our student athletes because they have said over and over, we deserve better as student athletes than to have a patchwork of state laws that tell us how to manage our name, image, and likeness. We deserve better than a race to the bottom for competitive purposes on a state-by-state basis. And we as student athletes want to know when we line up for a kickoff, tip-off in a basketball game, first pitch in a softball or baseball game, that the people occupying the other uniforms are governed by the same set of standards governing us. We've also experienced change in sports gambling, and we've seen some really difficult stories play out at the professional level where people have lost their careers. Last year, I spoke about a head coach who had lost an opportunity in our own league. And I'll say again, it's not good enough for states just to allow legalized sports gambling. They owe protection to the participants. And the online and direct pressures that come from those who aren't successful in their gambling decisions affect our participants. And every state that has legalized sports gambling needs to put in place clearly stated laws that protect participants from hostile behavior. We're going to continue our dialogue with Congress. Again, we're going to have to make decisions on our own. We have to do those with the right legal counsel. But Congress is a place that can help set national standards and address the issues our student athletes have raised. We're not waiting for change to land in our laps. We have a responsibility to engage with our congressional leaders. Our leaders are elected to lead, and I appreciate those conversations. But on behalf of the now over 8,000 student athletes in the Southeastern Conference, the future doctors and lawyers and engineers and teachers and nurses and real estate agents, the leaders of tomorrow, my ask again is that Congress continue not only to engage in conversation, but help with us resolve some of these outstanding issues and restore clear national standards for college athletics. I told you earlier it's good to be in Dallas. I hope you have four great days. I'm going to shift from the heavy to just acknowledge a few things. First, thanks to our SEC staff. You have no idea. You don't just show up and make this work. We're a great group of volunteers that want to make sure you have a successful and productive 4 days. So please ask if we can be of help. When you move these events around, it's not done often. We were the first. We've done it the most. We appreciate some of our local hosts here. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl, Rick Baker's leadership and friendship, Michael Conradi, Marty McGinnis, and others on that staff. Since we're in Dallas, and I referenced my Southland Conference days, I began a long time ago flying Southwest Airlines, and Southwest is housed here, and we announced that they are the official airline of the Southeastern Conference last week. Recognize and thank them. We appreciate the Dallas Sports Commission and the leadership of Monica Paul, their help to get us here, but also how we light up the skyline with the SEC theme throughout the week. The Omni Dallas and Guadalupe Ruda, Courtney Roy, and the entire team here. Also Anthony Travel and John Anthony for actually securing us a location. I'm also going to announce a little bit of news. It's a little bit of news. We've moved around from Birmingham to Atlanta to Nashville and now Dallas. And in 2025, we're going to return to Atlanta in the College Football Hall of Fame with our football media days. I also want to say thank you to Regions Bank, who is a year-long sponsor, but the sponsor of our media days. They also played a key role in something called SEC Startup. I promise you, I'm almost at the end, so I'll catch you on this one. This is a competitive business pitch competition among our student athletes who are the future entrepreneurs. They make a presentation and a pitch competition with their business concepts presented and reviewed by a panel of judges. It will be shown on a program tonight on the SEC Network at 7 Eastern, SEC Startups Debut. It includes student-athlete entrepreneurs from Auburn, Florida, Missouri, and Oklahoma, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the SEC Network. We're about to jump into questions. I'm going to go back and say there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that could cause us to say, wow, where's the hope in this? Where's the finish line? I actually sometimes think finish lines are too much of a focus because we have to look to the future. And as much as there may be that's viewed as problematic, those successes I mentioned just scratch the surface. We haven't told a lot of individual stories, but they're there. And I'm optimistic about our future because I get to spend time with the leaders in the Southeastern Conference, the leaders today and the young people who will be leaders tomorrow, which is why through all of this change, I'm convinced our best days are still ahead. So thank you for being here. If you're in Dallas and Kevin Trainer's here, you know it's a big event. And so Kevin is going to help guide us through our question and answer period.
Thank you, Commissioner. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. We do ask that you give your name and affiliation before asking your question. I have Grant, Dylan, and Dinah who will get us a microphone. Commissioner, we're going to start over here to our left, about midway back.
I guess we should have written them on a card and I could have called on you, but we're a little bit more open. So here you go.
This works. Thanks, Greg. Matt Houston, WFAA. Can you expand on why we're in Dallas today and what makes the communities along the I-35 corridor from Austin to Norman a cultural fit for the SEC?
A few things. One, we actually made an effort to move here in 2018 with Media Days, thought that Dallas might be the right first place. We have an incredible alumni population in the Metroplex, and we did some research on that back to 2018. I didn't have to go back and conduct that research. Again, it's one of the most accessible cities in the country. The variety of ways you can travel here allows you to run a 15K in Utica, New York, and be here for dinner by the end of a Sunday, like I did yesterday. Our move in 2018 was a recognition that we had moved west with Missouri and Texas A&M, with the border states in Arkansas and Louisiana with LSU. Made it sense not just to be at one. If we're going to be at more than one location, how do you touch the perimeters? We had a basketball tournament in St. Louis, Missouri, back in 2018, if I have my dates right, and so we were used to that movement. We've had 3 years to prepare for expansion, which is, I think, a record long time. And as we went through the expansion, that made Western events more and more important for us. And we pretty quickly decided to move Media Days. We looked at Houston, looked at Dallas, were the two that were our biggest focus. Here, the transition from Norman, to Columbia, Missouri, Fayetteville, Arkansas, College Station, Austin, Texas, that movement's really easy. And we are a big part of Texas. Texas is a big part of us now. I've always seen coaches traveling here during my own travel. We've had a bowl game affiliation here for a long, long time, and all of those relationships combined to make it the right move for us. And I encourage you to have fun fitting that into a small soundbite.
Commissioner will go right in front of us in the middle aisle.
Hey, Greg. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. I know there's been probably a lot more important things with college athletics, but I was curious if there's a plan for an SEC tiebreaker system now that there's no divisions to be able to settle an SEC championship.
Yes, in fact, we had our athletics directors on a video conference Thursday where he provided an update. It is a lengthy plan, consolidated around, I think, 8 principles. We go back to our athletics directors at their next video conference. It's about 2 weeks away. We can finalize that anytime between now and the start of the season. We have an annual in-person meeting where any of the little pieces that have been identified for review can be refined and finalized. So absolutely.
Commissioner, we'll go over to your right. Dennis along the aisle.
Greg, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. Certainly the House settlement as proposed for the next 10 years limits some legal liability. But USA Today recently reported in the last 10 years, the NCAA has incurred $433 million in legal expenses alone. Anybody can sue anybody for anything. But how do you lower the temperature on that?
Part of the current settlement effort is to resolve, to the extent we can resolve as much as possible, to do just that. We're not alone in college athletics at being pursued from a litigation front. You saw what happened in the NFL Sunday ticket decision. You look at Major League Soccer, just doing research on Law 360. You can see the existing open lawsuits there. We clearly have had to think differently, and you can see that happening as decisions are made on policy. An element of the question is how much authority can be managed at a national level through the NCAA. That's clearly what's under full scrutiny. What can be managed at the conference level? If it's less nationally, how do you actually have Final Fours in college football playoffs if everybody's to have a different set of rules? I also would observe that when you look at litigation that exists at the professional level, it's not an indication that that model solves all litigation threats. The simple observation is we live in a litigious society, and we have to continue to make wise decisions informed by legal counsel and be prepared to defend those decisions that are made. Lastly, we're dealing with historic change. And again, people have written over time they should have changed sooner. The reality is, whether you take that opinion or not, the change is happening now.
Okay, we'll go all the way in the far back left.
Hey, Greg. Bruce Marshall from WHBQ in Memphis. Maybe I should get this to Jim Phillips at DC next week. But how closely are you following Florida State and Clemson's challenge to the AC deal? And if they succeed, what sort of ramifications do you see for the entire college sports landscape?
Could you repeat that real question? We had you breaking up for just a bit.
Yeah, I think I got it. So the question is, how closely do I monitor what's happening in the ACC?
Yes.
And then what are the implications? I pay attention. As I said, we're focused on our 16. I've said before at media days, I'm not a recruiter. My job is to make sure we meet the standard of excellence that we have for ourselves on a daily basis. That attracts interest. It's done that with the 2 universities that we've added this year. They're not the only phone calls I've ever had, but I'm not involved in recruitment. Our presidents have been clear that I am not going to entangle us in litigation around expansion. And so I pay attention, but I'm not engaged in those conversations. In fact, as I understand, the issue is agreements have been signed and decisions have been made among a conference, and the question is, are those going to be honored as they were established? And apparently that's for a court to decide now. The broader implications, obviously, if things change, then there's a new level of uncertainty. It already creates speculation that I think is counterproductive. but I don't spend an enormous amount of my time thinking about it. I certainly don't spend any time engaged in that recruiting activity because we're focused on our 16, and I want to be respectful of the difficulty that's currently faced with that issue, that set of issues within the ACC, and my colleague, Jim Phillips.
Hey, Commissioner, we'll go over to our far right, over on the far aisle on the right.
Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Podcast Network. You mentioned the regionality of the SEC and the name still meaning something to this conference. Can you ever see a college sports landscape in which you would feel like branching out of the southeastern part of the United States with your conference membership would be beneficial?
We're focused on our 16, period. You've seen how we've made decisions over the last decade plus for contiguous states to join. I think that's incredibly wise and provides remarkable strength. And I'm not going to guess about what happens next.
Okay, we'll go right in front of me, Commissioner, here on the front row.
Andrea Adelson, ESPN. As a follow-up to that, Greg, I think you said 16 is our today and 16 is our tomorrow in your opening remarks. I just wanted to clarify, tomorrow, does that just simply mean tomorrow, or is that a long-term future tomorrow?
So the last three questions are part of the reality, which is I've responded now 3 times where our focus lies. Our focus is on our 16 members. I have a responsibility to pay attention, and I'm certainly not going to fuel speculation on what happens next. We can certainly remain at 16 for a long, long time and be incredibly successful.
Okay, we'll go right in front of you to the right, right from the front near aisle.
Yes, Commissioner Sankey, this is Drew DeArmond, WZZN Radio, Huntsville, Alabama. You worked with him throughout your entire career as commissioner on the other side of the headset with Coach Nick Saban. But what can he do to help our league continue to grow and navigate the ever-changing world of NIL and the transfer portal now as a member of the media and a voice of college football?
What can Nick do? Well, help us avoid rat poison would be the first on the list. He and I spoke, it was a couple of days after the announcement of his retirement, and I think one of Nick's observations, I think it's fine to share, is the ability to be influential in a different role outside of coaching. He and I probably dealt with, well, you're doing this because Nick thinks it's competitively favorable. One of the things I found over time is Nick, in many ways, uniquely thought ahead on issues. Provided really deep and clear insight. And he and I have had any number of conversations over, this is my 10th year as commissioner, but I've been in the SEC for 23 years, and but for the 2 years he was with the Dolphins, we're in conversation throughout those couple of decades. So I think he can bring that clarity. I think he can bring an understanding that even I don't have dealing with these issues on the front lines as a head football coach. And I know he brings a love of the game overall to an analysis. And so I have seen him engage in conversations already in a big picture problem solving way. And I hope that will continue. And he can evaluate my performance, since he's sitting in the room listening, my performance in answering that question.
Commissioner, go right in front of me, 3 rows back, Barry.
Barry Trammell, Tulsa World. Greg, you clearly knew a lot about Oklahoma and Texas 3 years ago when they agreed to come into the league. Learned a lot about them since then. What did you learn about them with your 2 visits to Norman and Austin in the last couple of weeks?
So the Austin visit was June 30th. The first on my priority list is don't be the last speaker between a crowd of thousands and Pitbull's performance. So that was a non-advantageous position, and we won't let that happen again. In both places, you saw the passion for their programs play out, and then in individual interactions while I walked around campus, either running on Sunday morning in Austin or Monday morning in Norman with a logo on and people doing a double take. It was fun to see in those communities displays of the SEC logo. At a leadership level, to have deep conversation about what the decision means for each campus, and me talking about what it means for the conference. I learned more about drone shows than I thought I would know, given the performances at both places. And I learned that both clearly meet what one of our athletics directors called the "it just means more" test. So that avid fan base that I spoke of earlier, that is in backward-looking surveys, both Oklahoma and Texas bring that same type of avid fan base to a set of peer universities and peer athletic programs. I also learned it's hot in a tuxedo in Norman, Oklahoma on a football field late at night in July.
Okay, we'll go back in the center section, same area. It's right behind you. Kirk?
Kirk Bowles from the Houston Chronicle. Texas liked to think it ran things in the Big 12. I was curious what you would state as far as your expectation of Texas' influence and impact on the playing fields and in the boardroom.
I actually think I just answered that to Barry, that both are now part of a conference with peer athletic programs and peer universities. So they'll fit, and we'll fit together as 16.
Okay, we'll go over here to our right. Commissioner, over on the right-hand side. Yeah.
Hey, Commissioner. Steve Moulton.
Which side of it? There we go. Yep.
Right here. WZZN in Huntsville. I heard you and Destin mention that there's no better time to be a college athlete than right now. But I do wonder, from talking to college athletes, what are their biggest concerns or issues that you hear from the players themselves?
What are the biggest issues? So I walked through some of them. One, that they dislike this notion of every state having a different set of rules around how name, image, and likeness is conducted. They dislike lining up in contests and not having an understanding that those on the other side are held to the same standards. Whether you want to believe it or not, they're not looking to be employees, and we've had pretty free-flowing conversations with them about what that may mean on what's perceived as a positive side and maybe the more problematic side. One of my really great conversations, Henry Coleman III, who plays basketball at Texas A&M, right after we announced expansion, Henry was on our men's basketball leadership council call and asked, when are they going to join? And I said, is that because you don't want to play your in-state rival, or you do? And he said, I want to play them as soon as I can. Our student athletes want great competition. They want the excitement of our stadiums and our arenas. They want to be against the highest level of competition. My reference to baseball is not accidental. I think the improvement of our baseball is in part about how our programs have positioned themselves, invested in facilities to attract coaching talent, and that attracts talented players who want to line up and compete against each other. Those are quick elements. They want to know that they're going to be supported if they're injured. They want to be cared for. They want to know that they have mental wellness care and support available. They tell us that mental wellness area, they want us to eliminate any barriers or perceived roadblocks, them accessing that might be viewed as problematic. So maybe some distance from their coaching staff, just so they can have a safe space when it's needed. And they want to play for a championship in a meaningful way.
Okay, Commissioner, we'll take one final question over to our left here on the near aisle.
Ralph's been diligent, so I'm going to call an audible too, to my right after. So too, Kevin.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner. You talked repeatedly this morning about being focused on your 16. Can you talk about the impact that Texas and Oklahoma are going to have on league revenues, and what your outlook is for the current TV contracts and what they can expect as far as bringing in more money?
Well, we don't parse out our money because we just add to. Our revenue is generated by 16. And clearly the revenue happens at a couple different ways. One is at a national level. So competitively, there are opportunities, whether it's the college football playoff, NCAA tournament revenues that are available. With more, you have more mouths to feed, but more opportunities to access those types of postseason revenue, the same with bowl games. You have conference revenues. So we have media contracts that can be adjusted. We have a network that draws eyeballs in on a national basis. All 16 of our schools combined to create that interest. And then at the local level, their positioning of their programs, whether it's football, basketball, gymnastics, baseball, soccer, how do they draw people in? How do they monetize that interest? All of those are, if you will, seamless across all 16 of our universities. And certainly when you add the history of both of those football programs, it creates interest. There's one place on the globe this fall where there'll be an F1 race and a college football game at the highest level, and that's in Austin, Texas. That's going to be an incredibly high demand ticket. You think about Texas playing at Texas A&M, the interest in that game. But I shared when Kentucky first visited College Station for football, they brought 10 to 12,000 fans because that's what we do together. That's why I don't break things out into just two. It's about 16 working together really well. I'm going to call on Ralph. I know your power, Mr. Moderator, but Ralph Russo from AP.
Thanks.
A New York Mets fan, but other than that, he's generally okay.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate that, and thank you, Kevin. Talked a lot about college sports needing to take control of its future and not necessarily allow others to dictate, but there's also been so much talk about how you need help from Congress to get this under control. So how do you balance those two things? Like, we can't do this alone, but we also have to do it alone. We also have to be the masters of our future.
Well, I don't think it's just do it alone. So let's just take a step back. So the first hurdle that you look back that has to be overcome, and this goes back 30, 40 years, is the system was perceived as working very well. Young people came in, they had opportunities, there were certainly problems. Things changed, the money changed, societal expectations changed, and adaptation was slow. But part of the adaptation was slow is higher education can be slow to adapt, so that's not unique on our campuses. It may be different in society. Again, it was also, whether you look back in Monday morning quarterback, right or wrong, the system worked pretty well. Provided those Olympians, those opportunities for people who wanted to go pro in sports, and those who didn't want to go pro in sports to learn and gain an education. A lot of first generation points of entry. So those were all seen as valuable. When we've walked through conversations, so back to the fall of 2015 with our presidents and chancellors, I probably didn't recognize that there are 5 fields of play the way I do now. And this is the illustration, Ralph, that I don't think we can do this alone. The 5 fields of play are the courts. We have to be there because of litigation. The second is Congress. We're active in that conversation because you talk about national standards. The third is at the state level. So even in our footprint, could you normalize or standardize state legislation or among our 12 states now to support that equitable competition our student athletes are asking to be a part of? The fourth is at the conference and campus level. How do we make decisions? And then the fifth is the NCAA. Now, if you could create the right kind of linkages between all 5, there's a perfect outcome. I can't ignore any of those 5. I can't work on 4. That doesn't mean all 5 have to work together to provide a path forward. We may have to do elements of that at conference levels, given the scrutiny we're under. But it would certainly be a much more healthy conversation if that could happen consistently at a national level. I hope that's responsive and illustrates both the why did it take so long. That's a little bit of our history in higher education. It was perceived as working well, plenty of criticism that it didn't. We've clearly adapted. You just think about the changes in the last 10 years, forgetting the outcome of the current settlement. There's a lot of things different around college sports. And that informs why I take the position there's no better time, yet we still have work to do. Thank you again for being here. Look forward, I think, to most of our conversations through the rest of the week. If our staff can be of help, or if I can be of help to the extent my time permits, I look forward to engaging in conversation. I'll be back shortly to introduce our first head football coach of the day.
And that was SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. Of course, got a lot of things in. Powerful words at the beginning of the conversation and then got into the questions. Of course, Drudy Armand threw a question at him. Steve Moulton threw a question at him. They got their answers, and now we can kind of dissect it a little bit more throughout the day. Tom Abraham is probably going to be the one to break it down a little bit more because we're going to hop into the Brian Kelly interview. He'll be up on the podium next, and we're just kind of waiting for that. But if you are watching over on WZZN TV, make sure you get your questions in for, of course, the coaches, the commissioner. We'll be popping those up throughout the day on the stream. It's going to be an odd one. It's going to be a very different type of day. Of course, SEC Media Days here live from Dallas. Of course, the Morning Blitz bringing you guys Greg Sankey. But I believe, Bandy, are you on the other end? Can I hear you? Because I need a little help here because the way that we're going to throw it over to Brian is it's going to be an interesting one. I can hear you. That's totally fine. The stream won't be able to hear you. But we have a lot of fun stuff to get into throughout the day. Of course, Brian Kelly. And then after him, I believe it's going to throw it to Shane Beamer. And then there's going to be a little bit of lunch. Tom Abraham's going to hop on. He's going to do his show. And then we're going to go throughout that. But again, if you're watching on WZZN TV, throw your questions. We'd love to hear them. As I'm literally doing two things at once. I'm trying to get the actual stream back to what's going down here in the, well, not in the studio. Bandy's at the studio, but here on location as I'm just a silhouette. Okay, you can just see me right here. Everybody working hard. Everybody either streaming to their respected stations, respected podcast sites. And the questions to be asked, a lot of them were answered. Greg Sankey doesn't really plan on adding any more SEC squads. And I mean, probably due to, having to change all the branding. They just put Oklahoma and Texas on the books. So having to, kind of change that going into 2025 would also be interesting. Speaking of 2025, we won't have to come back to Dallas. It's kind of, thankful. I'm kind of not thankful for it because I do like Dallas. It's a beautiful city, I will admit. But we're going to be going back to Atlanta. That'll be a lot of fun. And who knows? It'll be a little bit more interesting. But we're going to wrap it up here, throw it to Brian Kelly, and we're going to get into a little bit more of the fun. So don't go anywhere because you're listening to 97.7 ESPN, The Zone, live here from Dallas, Texas for SEC Media Days 2024.
In a few moments, please turn off your cell phones. When I clearly had
no idea what I was getting into. But as we go into the 2024 season at LSU, we'll be celebrating 100 years of Tiger football. We're excited about things that we're going to be able to showcase this year. We feel like Tiger football has a great history and tradition. Our stadium has been refurbished to take advantage of pageantry of Tiger Stadium, and I think it's going to be an exciting football venue for everyone. It's been a challenging season. A lot has gone on, as we know, with NIL and transfers, and college football playoffs is certainly upon us now, and we're excited about that change that I think brings a new form of excitement, and in particular to our new conference. I want to welcome Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC, making this, in my opinion, the premier college football conference in the country. Deep and competitive, and certainly now an incredible challenge from top to bottom. And so when we talk about playoffs, you're certainly going to be seasoned playing in this conference week in and week out. I brought 3 of our players here today that I'm very proud of, and you'll get an opportunity to spend some time with today. Garrett Nussmeier, who has waited for his opportunity to be our starting quarterback. His persistence, his patience, his leadership. I'm excited to watch him lead our football team in 2024. Mason Taylor, our starting tight end since his freshman year when he caught the winning 2-point conversion against Alabama, has only been one of the most consistent players for our football team. He's been that both on and off the field. You know, it's hard sometimes when you're surrounded with 3 first-round draft picks to kind of get the notoriety and publicity. And I thought it was only fitting to bring him here today and get his due recognition for the kind of football player he's been for us over the past 2 years, and the expectations of him really being the kind of two-way player, both as a blocker and a pass receiver. And then Harold Perkins, who has been a mainstay for us as a playmaker on defense, going into his 3rd year. I'm excited to watch what he's able to bring, both at the inside linebacker position. I know Blake Baker is going to be able to move him around. But really why I brought him is I want you to see the man outside the jersey. He's one of our top student athletes. He's got an incredible personality. I think you're going to love getting a chance to meet Harold Perkins, the man, instead of just talking about Harold Perkins, the football player. So those are the players that you'll get a chance to meet today. The 2024 football team at LSU is one that, as we go into year 3, has been built on accountability and trust. But it's been built knowing that we have to be able to play much more balanced football. We had obviously a record-setting offense last year, but we didn't play to the standard that we needed to play at times defensively. And certainly that will be the goal this year, was to play the kind of offense and defense and special teams that complements each other. So the challenge this year for us going into the offseason was to make the kind of strides to bring our defense up to the standard necessary to play for a championship. And we feel like we've done that. Obviously, we've got a little bit more work to do with our preseason, and our opener will certainly test us when we open up against USC in Las Vegas, a game that we're certainly excited about. So all of those things in 2024 have been exciting opportunities for our growth at LSU, and can't wait to get started.
Thank you, Coach. If you do have a question, raise your hand. Please give your name and affiliation. Grant, Dylan, and Dinah have the microphones, and so we'll go ahead and get started right here. Coach, right in the center section. Right here, right in front of us.
Randall Sweet, Sooners on SI. Obviously, you guys lose Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors to the draft. How do you plan on replacing that production?
Well, I don't think you look towards one player. I think, you know, when we look at our football team in its totality, there'll be a number of players that we'll count on. I think we start with Kyron Lacey. You know, he will be certainly a player that we lean on. But I think at the wide receiver position, you know, there's probably 6 to 8 players that will get the opportunity to contribute and make an impact. I think that's what I like about our receiving core more than anything else is the depth. I think we've got speed on the perimeter. Chris Hilton showed that in our bowl game against Wisconsin, his ability to track the ball down the field. I think we've got the ability to play inside out at the slot receiver position. I think we've got great depth there. We brought in C.J. Daniels. I think will help us. Zion will help us transfer from Mississippi State. I think we brought in the right mix of players to give us the depth necessary inside and out to make up for that lost production.
Coach, we'll go to the section in front of me, over to your left, about 3/4 of the way back.
Joe Coca with Inside Texas. You had immediate success in the SEC during your first season. What do you think was one of the biggest keys into parlaying your success at Notre Dame into immediate conference title contention in year one?
Well, clearly, being the #1 offense in the country was not good enough. I think you have to have much more balance. So the balance that we need is offensively and defensively, we've got to be able to complement each other. And we didn't do that last year. So what we're going to need is that complement on defense. We're going to have to play better defense this year. And I think we've made the necessary strides in the offseason to continue on that growth. So, again, complementary football, offense and defense. And I know that sounds like coach speak, but the numbers prove it out. You can't have the #1 offense in the country and not play the kind of defense necessary to get you to the next level. So playing better defense, quite frankly.
Coach, we're going to go over to our right, in the right section. Right far side, to the right.
Hey, Coach. Over here. Hey, Coach. What do you, Alex Dunlap, Orange Buds. What was the sales pitch to Bo Davis, and what does he bring as an on-field coach and as a recruiter?
You know, the sales pitch was certainly his opportunity, you know, to rebuild the pride and tradition of LSU's defensive line. There is a great and rich tradition of LSU football. And I think that had something to do with it. He wanted to be the architect of bringing that back. His ability to motivate, his ability to teach technique. He's demanding, never demeaning. He has an incredible experience with success. He's won national championships within the SEC. So players immediately identify with his success because it's real. And that carries on to the recruiting trail. You know, somebody that has done it, been there. And I think we're seeing that come to fruition, you know, early on in his tenure here at LSU.
Coach will go right in front of us, right in the front row. Ron, just to your left.
Yeah, Ron Higgins, Shreveport Poacher Journal. You've had some big hits in the transfer portal, like Jaden. You've had some misses. This is your third recruiting class. What have you learned about the transfer portal since your first year when you had to take a bunch of guys the first year to fill roster spots? What have you changed as far as philosophy? What have you learned?
Well, I think the transfer portal is what I always thought it would be, and that it can't be strictly need-based. If you're in the transfer portal for need-based, in other words, you're filling needs, you haven't done something right in the natural recruiting season. And last year it was need-based, and that's never a good situation when it comes to the development of your football program. I think you need to use the transfer portal to top off the tank, so to speak, right? That you can add to a particular position and almost one that it's not needed, but becomes a luxury. When you can get to that situation, I think that the transfer portal becomes an effective tool. But if it's strictly need-based, you're probably in for some rough seas.
Coach, we're going to stay up front here, just a section over to your right here, second row to your right.
Coach Kelly?
To the right.
Yes, sir.
Middleton with Horns Illustrated. You talked about the success coming into the SEC, having a balanced offense and defense. Texas, when you look at them, you won't play them this season. When you look at them and what Sarkisian has done with that team, do they have that balance in offense and defense to be a top contender in the SEC and possibly even take the championship this season?
I only watched them against Alabama because that was really the only game that, from a recruiting standpoint, not a recruiting, but from an analysis standpoint, that we had a liked opponent that I needed to watch them. And in watching that game, they certainly had both offense and defense, the capabilities of competing for a championship. Now, each year brings, players coming and going. I don't know what their losses were. I haven't researched their roster. But certainly if they lost some players, I know they lost some big players on the defensive line. I think it's always about how you replace. And so if you've recruited well and you can step in, if they've recruited well and they have guys to step in, Texas certainly has the ability to compete for an SEC championship.
Coach, we'll go back over in front of the section in front of me, standing on the aisle, right here in the center.
Coach, Chris Hummer with 24/7 Sports. What goes into placing somebody as positionally versatile as Harold Perkins, and how do you balance his long-term future in the NFL for what makes the most sense for your team?
Well, I think first and foremost, you're looking at a player from his freshman year and what he can do before he's fully developed. So if you take him in his freshman year and there are things that he can do to impact your team, but he's not fully developed yet, then you find a position for him that can impact immediately, knowing full well that he's not fully developed in all areas that allow him to play every down. And Harold might have been that as a freshman, where he was much more impactful as a pass rusher, as somebody that was a situational player. And quite frankly, he maybe got a reputation as that, but that's not who he is. He's an every down linebacker that can play inside and out, who has the ability to run, who can obviously rush the passer, but he can also tackle from, sideline to sideline. And that's the developmental process that I think coaches have to be able to see what can he do right now versus what can he do as he develops, and then ultimately, what is his position as he moves to the next level? And so I think you have to take all of those things in consideration when you're evaluating your players.
Coach, we'll go over to our far right, over towards your side.
Yeah, Coach Brooks Olson with Dogs Daily.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Right.
Gotcha.
All right. Jaden and Garrett seem to be very different football players at the quarterback position. I'm curious if there is any common traits that all great quarterbacks might share, and if you see any of those in Garrett.
Oh, there's certainly common traits. I think, the first one, certainly, if we're talking outside of the skill factor, right? The ability to throw the football. If you talk about just from the neck up, the ability to certainly translate. In other words, take the offense, take the things that are taught in the classroom, and be able to translate those things to the field. That was one of Jaden Daniels' best assets. You could watch it, you could talk about it, he could recite it, you could be in a meeting, and you would walk out of that meeting, you go, amazing. His recall, his ability to go through all the progressions, his ability to know everything in terms of blitz protection, and then in a game, he could do it. That gift, that ability is what makes the great quarterbacks great. And Garrett's been able to do that as well. Now he's got to go do it in the games like Jaden did. But that's the first thing we look for, is the ability to take it from the meetings, take it from the film study, take it from the walkthroughs, take it from the practice, and apply it to the games. Real time. And I believe Garrett will be able to do that as well.
Coach will go straight down that center aisle on the near, just right here on the end.
Coach, Emily Grace McWhorter from the next round. What has the defense progression been from spring football until now under Blake Baker?
Well, look, I mean, scheme aside, I think everybody has, their flavor of what the scheme, looks like. And Blake certainly has an established comfort level in a particular scheme. But it's relationships. It's getting players excited about stepping on the field. It's about players truly wanting to be part of those 11 guys, running, hitting, being part of that unit. And Blake's ability to orchestrate that, to bring that together, is what's been the piece that is really evident.
Okay, we're going to go over to the section on the right on the aisle. Over to your right, Coach. There's Ralph.
Hey, Brian. Good morning. Ralph Russo from the Associated Press. I know LSU expectations
is what's been the piece that is really evident.
And I think it's fair to say you maybe exceeded some expectations. Builds up big expectations for last year, and there was a perception that you didn't quite hit those expectations. In the real world, in year 3, how do you view the progression to get to now? Do you feel like the expectations were too high last year? And again, how does the build look in year 3, knowing where you came from?
The easiest way for me to answer the question is that I don't deal in expectations. I deal within a process of how we do things on a day-to-day basis. And I know that's not the answer you want, Ralph. I mean, so we don't deal on a day-to-day basis with those expectations as much as, are we doing the things necessary that allows us to stick with our process? Because we're not about the results as much as, are we making progress towards our ultimate goals? And our mission is certainly to win championships. And I get how we get to that conclusion. We didn't win a championship. We're in year 3. This is the most accountable this group has been. There's trust within the group. This will be the deepest team that we've had. So I don't know what that's going to be relative to the expectations. All I can do is continue to work towards what our process is. And then whatever those outcomes are going to be evaluated externally. And I don't control those. I control what our process is and how we go to work every day. And I can tell you, in year 3, I've had really good success with getting our football team to be the most accountable, the most trusting team that I've had here at LSU. And that's usually been pretty good at my other stops.
Coach will go right in front of me, my podium here, Eric, right here on the aisle.
Good morning, Coach. Eric Bailey with the Tulsa World. Just want to get your thoughts.
Coach Venable's job was just the bounce back and the ability to overcome some adversity. Certainly, a coach having some learning and having an outstanding season. I think outstanding football team with a great history and tradition. I got the privilege of playing them, a few times when I was at Notre Dame, and it's a great atmosphere. I played them when I was at Cincinnati. So, I think it's just a great tradition, great program, and I think Coach has done a great job of really, I think, on the job, really adjusting to being the head guy, and I think he's done a terrific job.
We have time for a few more. We'll go back over to your side, Coach, over to the right, over to your right-hand side.
Coach, hi, good morning. George Somerville from Touchdown, United Kingdom. You coached in Ireland with Notre Dame in 2012 and plan to go back in 2020. Reports earlier this year that LSU is considering playing in the College Football Classic in Ireland. Is it to expand the LSU? What does it mean in Ireland?
Catholic and go to Ireland, not to just be at the Temple Bar, but to be in Ireland and the culture of Ireland. I just think from our, with the LSU brand throughout the country, I think is international, and I felt the travel there is so clean and easy. Ireland has been such a great destination for other football programs to go and play. Aviva, Cork Stadium, both are great venues